Okay, Commission President Rachel Lyle Smith, we are ready to open the meeting whenever you are.
All right. Today is January 6, 2021. It is 7 p.m. I'm calling the regular meeting of the Oregon City Commission to order. Ms. Riggs, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell. Commissioner, he said here, and for those of you who couldn't see him, Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
And Commission President Rachel Lyle Smith.
Here. All right, well, we're kind of in here. We're going to do our stand for our flag salute.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
It's like a round.
A little lag going.
We're proving how difficult
We're doing it in a
saluting the
round
flag
tonight.
is difficult with COVID. All right. So item number 3 is ceremonies, proclamations, and presentations. And we have a lot going on tonight. So we have the Honorable Lorraine McNeese, who has just joined us in the commission chambers. She will be providing the oath of office for our newly elected and re-elected commissioners. Commissioner number 2, which is Commissioner Denise McGriff, you are up first.
Commissioner McGriff?
And then we'll have you stand just right here, so you're just enough a distance, but not
Okay.
too far.
Okay. If you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Denise McGriff, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oregon, along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code. I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully perform the duties of City Commissioner of Oregon City during my incumbency thereof. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. I have a few prepared remarks because I was a little bit nervous tonight. First of all, I want to thank the citizens of the city of Oregon City. I want to thank my fellow commissioners, Rachel Lyle Smith, Rocky Smith, and Frank O'Donnell for all their support over this past year and a half that I've been on the commission. And I'm very pleased to be able to work with you all again for the next 4 years. And when I say we, I sincerely mean that. We have worked as a team. I have been very proud and pleased to be a part of the group with the other 3 of you. We've made a lot of progress as a team, and I think that's important for our community to notice that. I know people have mentioned it to me. I also want to thank the staff for all their support in answering all of my many thousands of questions and bearing with me when I inquire about things. I also want to thank my family, my supporters, and last but not least, the Magnificent Seven. You know who you are. I wouldn't be here without you. I also want you to know, community, that I will work very hard for you. I'm committed to moving Oregon City forward. We have a lot of healing to do, and I'm very excited and honored that I'm going to be able to work with you to complete some of these tasks. We don't know what they all are at this time, but we will get there. I look forward to having you contact me, be in aisle 13 at Fred Meyer, Winco, Rite Aid, wherever I happen to shop. I always run into somebody, and you're always willing to come up to me and ask me questions or talk to me, and I appreciate that. Together, we are going to be able to move Oregon City forward. I look forward to that. And I want to just quote Dr. Martin Luther King, who said that the time is always right to do what is right, and we are going to do what is right for this community. Thank you.
Let you have that.
For those who can't, Yeah, for those who can't see, because we have stuff going on in the commission chambers and some of you are on Zoom, Commissioner McGriff is signing her oath, and there we go, Katie's is showing everybody what's happening so that everybody knows what's happening. I'll give her a second.
That's it, folks.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Oh, she moved the camera. There we go.
There we go.
Congratulations, Commissioner McGriff.
Thank you. Oh, hold it up.
Oh, we're doing pictures now, so
Sure.
hang on one second.
You can't see me smiling, but we'll do one without my mask on. Because my family will like that.
You gonna take that with you?
Take this with you?
Yep.
Just last but not least, thank you, Bob.
Oh, I don't know if he could hear you. You weren't in the mic, but he must have heard you because they heard you.
Yeah.
We can hear it.
Let me leave the pen.
Commissioner O'Donnell, will you raise your right hand and repeat it?
Oh, hold the mic up to you.
Judge
Have to hold the
McNeese
mic
is
up.
who I am. Would you repeat after me? I, Frank O'Donnell,
I, Frank O'Donnell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Oregon,
and of the state of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties.
faithfully perform the duties,
Of City Commissioner of Oregon City,
faithfully perform the duties
of City Commissioner for Oregon
of City
City,
Commissioner of Oregon City,
during my
of City
incumbency that,
Commissioner of Oregon City.
during my incumbency thereof.
I got this. I will to the best of my ability faithfully perform the duties of City Commissioner of Oregon City during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
Commissioner O'Donnell, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, I'll keep it brief. Won't be any photo op because I don't get any prettier, so I am what I am. I would say that I appreciate the support of the citizens of Oregon City. I'm thankful to those who have helped the city emerge from a very difficult time, both my fellow commissioners and the citizens of Oregon City and the civic groups who signed on and helped us emerge from a crisis period. It's just the start of that emergence, but we'll get it done. I consider this a sacred trust and will handle it as such, and know that my voice is your voice, and I just need to hear from you. Also want to recognize this historical moment for Commissioner Denise McGriff, and I'm very proud of her and the folks of Oregon City that elected her. So my promise is to serve faithfully, be responsible to those who elected me, and those who didn't vote for me. I'm equally responsible to all citizens of Oregon City, and you have my thanks and my promise to try to be fair in all things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so item 3B is next, the mayoral appointments to city boards and commissions. Mr. Conkle, do you want to kick this one off?
So for this item, the mayoral appointments to city boards and commissions, at the beginning of each new year, the mayor and/or the commission president, acting in the capacity of the mayor, announces the appointments to city boards and commissions. All appointments, unless otherwise specified, begin on January 1st of 2021. Would you like, Commission President, to announce the
Sure.
the candidates that you've placed?
The appointees. Yes, and I actually have probably what's going to be considered a little bit of a lengthy statement. I have received a few comments questioning why I made the appointment, the timing I've made the appointments that I picked, the amount of input I've received, the amount of input I didn't receive or take into consideration, the number of candidates, whether or not they're qualified, and their association or my association with Mayor Holliday. So because of all of this, I would like to take this moment to kind of explain a lot. I tried to be pretty transparent. I won't say pretty. I tried to be very transparent with the letter. And I will say that normally there isn't even a letter that's presented with all of the amendments. I tried to be, to provide a narrative to explain a couple of these items, but that didn't resolve everything. So I've had a few accusations, and so therefore I feel like I want to kind of set everybody straight on what I've done. So on the topic of commission president appointments versus the city commission, discussing this as a body and then selecting as a body. This is actually a pretty simple one. So I'm going to ask you all, since we just heard our oaths that we all gave when we were elected to office, the question is, do you believe that we should follow our charter? This is a yes or no answer. It's pretty simple. Our oath of office says that we will follow the charter. So over the years, we have had a number of questions regarding the interpretation of our charter. Some have gone to court in the cases of annexations and home rule, and some questions have been reviewed by our city attorney. And in this case, we were advised by our legal counsel on how to move forward given the recall of Mayor Holliday. This was an unusual time. We haven't been through this as a city before, and we had lots of questions about what to do. So the simple fact is that the charter says that the commission president carries out the duties of the mayor when the mayor cannot perform the duties of the office. Therefore, the committee appointments are not a decision to be made by the city commission as a whole. We may want it to be a group decision, but it isn't. In this case, the commission president makes committee appointments. In the last 2 years since I was elected to my position, this commission has not taken on the task of charter revisions. We have talked about it, and I think this will be a great topic of discussion at our goal-setting retreat later this month. For the record, in 2018, when I was campaigning, I did say that I supported the city commission making the appointments and for the planning commission and the historic review board. It is on video, and you can go back and listen to that. I remain open to a discussion about these potential charter changes, but the charter is still our governing document. And so no matter what I think it should say or could say, I have to follow, and we have to follow what it says right now. And what it says right now is the commission president makes the appointments. Regarding the lack of input or ignoring input that was received, as I outlined in my letter to the city commission regarding the committee appointments, I consulted a wide range of people before making my selections. This included applicants themselves, committee interviews, the city staff, some committee chairs. I also provided the opportunity for the city commission to participate and send me comments and feedback on the applicants. In some cases, the majority of the comments and the interview scores were all in agreement. In some cases, one group wanted one person and the other group wanted the complete opposite. So my goal was to listen to all of the comments and to try to make a balanced and unbiased decision. I wanted equity of gender, geography, and experience. In fact, I followed the footsteps and guidance of Mayor Alice Norris. If you would like to check that out on archived video of what she said, because I actually did listen to this recently, you can go back to April 7th of 2010 when she goes over how she made committee appointments, and I felt like I was following the example that she had laid out. So if someone was selected that you didn't like or didn't want on a committee, know that there were plenty of folks who did select that person and wanted that person to be on the committee. Regarding the lack of qualified candidates or number of applicants, the request for volunteers was nonstop during 2020. It was posted in the Trail News and every edition released. The notice to apply for boards and committees was also advertised on social media for 3 months beginning in October of 2020. It was also announced at the committee meetings. All of the boards and committee vacancies were advertised together as a whole and without individual social media posts for specific boards and committees. We never know how many people are going to apply for which committees. So the Historic Review Board and the Planning Commission are two of the hardest typically to fill. The HRB requires specialized knowledge, and the Planning Commission is one of the most work and time intensive and requiring a big commitment of time and energy to be on the Planning Commission. So this year, just to give a little perspective, the HRB had 6 very qualified applicants. In this case, I could have used all of them. I think I could have easily picked all of them because they were great candidates. And we only had 4 positions to fill. Every committee was a little bit different on the number of applications received, but when we get a good overall showing of applicants across most of the boards and committees, I'm unlikely to think that the advertising or the request for volunteers was a flawed process. Therefore, if a committee interviewed all of the applicants and there were more applications than the number of positions available, and the majority of comments stated that the applicants were qualified to do the job at hand, I did not see any reason to start over or to try to widen the pool of applicants. If there are folks that didn't apply because you thought Mayor Holliday would turn you down for an appointment, and we had a changeover and balance of who was making the selections right in the middle of this process. So if you were in that camp, there will be more vacant positions in 2021, and I really do encourage you to apply. In fact, we still have some vacant positions open right now, and I would encourage you to apply because I want people who are interested and eager to serve. So finally, I'd like to address the fact that there are tainted applicants due to their association with Mayor Holliday, or me, for that matter. Finally, some have made the notion that an association with Mayor Holliday and a person's fitness for a volunteer position were linked and connected. I do not believe that a person is unfit for a position on a board or committee if the sole reason for that determination is because Mayor Holliday liked them, put their name on a list, or thought that they'd do a good job serving our city. As you all know, it is difficult to fill positions on our volunteer committees. We typically have some vacancies. Have any of my fellow commissioners encouraged someone to apply for a committee? Have you tried to think of people you know that may be willing to fill some of our vacant positions or lead a neighborhood association? If the answer is yes, then I hope that the person you talk to doesn't ever get associated with the bad decision that you made or linked to you forever. They may not have ever asked or wanted to be linked to you forever. It's just not a fair way to treat people. Evaluate people based on their temperament, qualifications, their ability to serve the community, and whether they represent a group in the city that is unrepresented, and so on. The list could go on the qualities and characteristics of why we would want to select a person for a board or committee. So some have said that I have changed, or OMG, she picked someone that Mayor Holliday picked. This is ridiculous. So I weighed a lot of input that was often in disagreement with other opinions and made a decision based on my equity goals and whether I thought the person could do the job. So I'm hoping I think I covered all the issues that I've heard about literally in the last 3 weeks, really in the last week and a half, and some today. So with all of that said, we had a really great set of applicants, many qualified applicants, and I was really happy to submit my committee appointments to the city earlier this week. And with that, I will read who those announcements are now that I've fully explained how I made the process and some of the determinations and what actually happened. I'm not going to read the times, I'm just going to name the people's names to the committee. So Natural Resources Committee is Nancy Brochot, Brian Visler, sorry, I'm going to say your names incorrectly, Samantha Wolf, and Carrie Young. Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is Troy Bullinger, Karen Morey, and Tim West. Transportation Advisory Committee is Ben Simmons and Tim Morgan. Planning Commission is Lisa Novak and Daphne West. Historic Review Board is Carrie Crook, Paul Edgar, Sabrina Ferry, and Ray Stovey. And the persons were listed in alphabetical order. No rankings or anything was in the way the names were presented on the piece of paper. I feel like these nominations have been scrutinized. I don't know if it's more than they normally are, or if it's just because it's kind of a crazy year and everybody has, I don't know what the reason is, but I hope that, I wish these volunteers luck. I thank you for participating and being eager and willing to volunteer your time, because it is time out of your own personal lives. We all understand it because we commit a lot of time ourselves. And so congratulations, and keep the city going in a good direction. So thank you for applying. And again, we do have some vacant positions, a few. And there were a couple of committees that we didn't address in this round of committee appointments. So there's a couple that will still need to be addressed. But if you're interested, please participate with us, because we want to have you on board. With that, is there any other comments or anything on this item? Okay. All right, so with that, I think we will move on to, it says oath of office for the 2021 Commission President. So I need consensus from, I think, the commission to move item 7A, which is election of the commission presidents, normally under general business. Our agenda, it kind of has to stay in this order. This is the way things are divvied up, and we follow this format. So that's the reason these two items were separated. So is there consensus by the commission to move the nomination of commission president up in order to carry out 3C right after that?
I plan to do that, and I would so move.
Okay. I see a thumbs up from Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Smith, thumbs up.
Yes.
All right. So with that, I will open the floor for conversations. I guess first, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kabaisman, our attorney, since we're kind of in new territory, just to double check?
New territory?
If anybody has any questions about the process, let
yeah.
No,
please
I
let us
thought
know.
you meant there was something new, and I thought,
Nope.
did I miss something? Did I not read something?
Well, normally the current commission president isn't presiding over the election of a commission president. That's what I meant by it being new and kind
Oh,
of.
okay.
That's it,
Okay,
sorry.
Sorry, I'm with you now. Sorry, I'm
Yep.
a little slow on the draw here. Are we ready to proceed?
Yep.
I would like to move, how do I want to say this? I'd like to recommend that we nominate Commissioner Rocky Smith to be Commission President for, after this meeting, starting next time, for the year 2021.
Can we do
I
that?
don't have the ability. So typically, under the charter, the current commission president holds it for 1 year and until a successor shall be elected and qualified. So if there's a different commission president elected and qualified at this meeting, that commission president would take over running the presiding officer position.
Okay, whatever. Okay, thank you.
I don't have the ability to raise hand here, so I would like to speak.
Okay. Commissioner O'Donnell?
We have stated our respect for tradition and our respect for these city code and how we do business. And I think Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith has done a commendable job. And I also think that there's no reason not to follow our historical precedent, which is the commission presidency rotates among those who have served in order of seniority. I've already served. Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith is currently serving and will have served. Commissioner Rocky Smith is the current senior member. And only for that reason, following precedent, I will second that motion.
Okay. Do we need to ask Commissioner Smith if he's willing, or just take the vote and he doesn't have a say?
He's nodding.
Okay, is this?
I guess the call for the vote.
Yeah, call for the vote?
Okay. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
And Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so I think at this point, Commissioner Smith, this meeting turns over to you.
Sworn in, I guess.
Oh, sorry,
right.
you have to get sworn in first. I was gonna skip that part. Judge McNeese is still in the room, and she is making her way to microphone and stuff, so we will be ready in just a moment.
Well, in that moment, I do want to thank Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith for her service as commission president. I know how difficult that can be. I know you've got many things on your plate, especially in the next few months with your candidacy. I wish you well. I've been honored to serve with each and every one of you. Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith has done a fine job in all aspects of this office, so thank you.
I would like to concur with that. Like I said, there is a real spirit of team building and team so far with this commission, and I'm very proud of that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, will you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Rocky Smith, do solemnly swear
I, Rocky Smith, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Oregon,
and of the state of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code,
Thank you, Rachel.
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of Commission President of Oregon City
of Commission President of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. I don't have a gavel, so
We'll run one right over.
I'll just, do something. Okay. Not my head. All right, so I guess we are on 3D, Library Board Annual Update.
The lovely and wonderful Greg Williams.
Good evening,
There
Commission
he is.
President and Commissioners. My name is Greg Williams. I am the Director of the Oregon City Public Library, and I'm pleased tonight to have Scott Edwards, the Chair of the Oregon City Library Board, here to deliver the 2020 annual update from the Library Board. So Scott, turn it over to you.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg, and congratulations to the new commission president. And thank you, commissioners. My name is Scott Edwards, and I serve as the chair of the Oregon City Library Board. And thank you for the opportunity tonight to update you on what the board has been up to. In January and February, the board reviewed and approved revisions to the library's patron behavior policy and recommended specific changes to the library board bylaws and the Oregon City Municipal Code to ensure they accurately reflected the composition of the library service area and were in alignment with current officer election practices. We also welcomed a new board member, David Goldberg, Director Greg Williams. We also worked to review the annual data provided to the Library District Advisory Committee, and we look forward to participating in the county-sponsored Library District Task Force. Our designated LDAC representative, Nick Berkman, attended the task force's first meeting along with the rest of the city's delegation. And then, March happened. And so like all the other advisory boards, we had to take a hiatus while the city worked out the online meetings and remote attendance. In June, we were able to resume meeting, and the library director brought the board up to speed on all of the COVID related challenges and changes that had happened over the last few months. Since then, the library board has worked with the library director to continuously review and discuss the evolving pandemic environment, the changing public health guidance, and the industry best practices, and to review and offer feedback on the library's COVID-19 response and the service restoration plans. And so while the pandemic has occupied much of the board's attention, we also worked with the director to review, revise, and improve the statistical data the library board receives every month, to review annual statistics submitted to the state, and to keep abreast of significant operational changes at the library. We also reviewed Commission Resolution 20-19 and are working to implement that at the library. Our library board members have continued to serve as liaisons with other library support groups. Even though LDAC has been on hiatus since March, Nick Berkman continues to be our liaison with them. And our member Ken Hall served as library board liaison to the Friends of the Library, and our member Cynthia Andrews served as our liaison to the Oregon City Library Foundation. In the coming year, we are looking forward to continuing to work with Greg as we chart our way through the pandemic and to ensure that our library remains strong, vital, and responsive to the needs of the community. And I know as chair of the board, I'd like to express the board's opinion that Greg and Denise and all of the library staff have really just done a tremendous job in this very, very trying year. And we're very thankful for them and the incredible job that they've done and all of the incredible efforts they've done to try to serve the community when we've had to stay apart. And they've managed to continue to do that. And that's the update on 2020. So if you have any questions.
Any questions from the commission?
Yes, I do, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Edwards, so could you elaborate a little more, or Mr. Williams, about how things are going with the library district and what you started talking about a little bit? I'm a little bit aware that there's a little bit of kerfuffle with some of the outlying areas, and I've also heard about the issue that the city of Canby has raised with regard to the library District, I should say library district, not the library. We love our library.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Scott, for the kind words about, especially the staff. I want to echo Scott that our staff has been tremendously wonderful throughout this whole pandemic. The districts of the Library District Advisory Committee has been effectively on hiatus for about a year. We just had our first meeting, getting back in the swing of things yesterday evening. The goal of that meeting was more just to kind of touch base with everybody. So every library's representative was there and just kind of talked about our pandemic experiences. As I think the commission knows, right before the pandemic started, there was a large group that was starting to work on a library district task force, which was to kind of look at some of the issues that are facing the library districts and to make sure that we have a sustainable, strong library district going forward. With the pandemic, those efforts, that progress kind of stopped, and the Library District Advisory Committee is going to be in the next couple of months talking about what are some ways that we might be able to kind of start that work up again. So there are some issues that people have discussed in previous meetings. There has not been a significant amount of discussion of those issues because that Library District Task Force has not been active since the pandemic started.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner O'Donnell?
Just a comment. I want to thank Greg Williams and the library board. I know they have persevered in providing alternative means of service and delivery of services. They've done some innovative things. I want to say that as I'm sure the parents and people like me with the title of grandpa miss the ability to take our children to those youth and child services that were so wonderful in the child's development. And I look forward to those being restored at more even times, and I want to thank them for everything they've done. Simply that. Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
All right, is that any of the other questions or comments? All right, Greg, thank you. Scott, thank you. Now we move on to 3E, presentation on the Oregon City Westland Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge Concept Plan. John Lewis.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner, or Commission President Rocky Smith. Thank you very much for the intro there. So we do have a presentation. ODOT is going to provide it, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But just wanted to kind of acknowledge this particular story has been in the news somewhat and gotten some attention. So it is one of really 3 projects in our vicinity that ODOT is working on, or prominent projects that ODOT is working on. So this is not the I-205 expansion project, and it's not the tolling project. This is the Oregon City Westland Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge Concept Plan, and it's just getting kicked off. And it's, this meeting and other meetings as well are part of kind of the public involvement process. The project manager for this one is Sandra Hickory, and she's with ODOT. There's also Lucinda Broussard, who's on the phone, and I saw somebody else whose name I recognized, but I'm not recalling it right now, but she's also on from ODOT. And I think Sandra's going to carry on most of this. Dana Webb is also on the phone, who's your city engineer. She's, I think, running the PowerPoint. So I'm interested in hearing this as well. I know we've introduced the topic to Commissioner McGriff, and Commissioner Lyle Smith has been somewhat involved in this through C4 and her involvement with other committees that she acts on. So I don't know that it's new to everyone, or any of you for that matter. Some of you may have been involved, but we appreciate, Sandra, you going through the presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, City Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm Sandra Hickory, a transportation planner with ODOT, and I'm here with Dana Webb, Oregon City engineer, representing the Oregon City Westland Bridge concept plan today. And as the project name states, this is a planning project, And the goal of this project is to come up with a preferred location for a pedestrian and bicycle bridge within this historically and culturally significant study area. And the hope is that once the plan is completed, that we would have a document akin to a multi-page sales brochure that can be used to apply for grant funding and complete the next phases of the project, which would be the design of a bridge and then construction. And so before proceeding, I just wanted to ask the city commissioners to please hold your questions for the end of the presentation. There's a chance I may answer your questions as I progress through the presentation. Next slide. So this is our project partners and agencies represented in the project management team. And to provide a little background on how this group came together, in the summer of 2019 on a policymaker tour, there were local and regional staff who expressed shared interest in a better east-west connection for people who walk and bike across the Willamette River. And so in order to help this vision come closer to reality, ODOT provided some seed money for this pedestrian and bicycle bridge concept plan. And our hope is that this planning process will help our local planners confirm the need for an improved crossing and also to identify the crossing location. So while ODOT holds the contract for this project, this is a multi-agency partnership, and staff from each of these agencies listed here are have been involved in every step.
Sandra, it might maybe give it a try, turning off your camera, and let's see if we can pick you up that way. No? Did we lose Sandra?
I think we did.
Okay. Danny, you went through this once.
John, why don't we reload this at another time?
Oh, there she is.
Do we want to come back to it or?
Let's see.
Oh, sorry, what?
There we go.
Where did I get cut off?
There she is, yes.
Talking about the partners.
Which part of the partners?
I think you got through most of this slide.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is a multi-agency partner project, and let's see, for the agenda today, we'd like to cover the project purpose and need, the background and study area, lay out a few of the preliminary crossing alignment that have been shared by the consultant, and then discuss the project committee structure and stakeholder engagement, share the project schedule, and then projects within the study area that we are in coordination with, and then close with some questions and answers. Next slide. So the purpose and need for this project is to identify a low-stress, comfortable, and designated connection for people walking and biking. Currently, the bicycle and pedestrian access across the Willamette River is Arch Bridge, shown here. There's about a 6% grade where bikes share the roadway with vehicles, and about a 4-foot wide sidewalk for pedestrians. And so this project is looking at increasing safety, improving regional connectivity, enhancing accessibility and cultural experience of the historic Willamette Falls, and creating opportunities for economic and community development on both sides of the river. This is the study area between the Abernathy Bridge and the Willamette Falls, shown in this map. Just to give a little background, as part of the I-205 improvements project, looking at earthquake ready improvements to the Abernathy Bridge. Back in 2016, ODOT developed the I-205 staff road to Abernathy Bridge bicycle pedestrian assessment memo. That's a mouthful. This memo looked at the feasibility of a pedestrian and bicycle facility, either cantilevered or suspended to the Abernathy Bridge, as well as a pedestrian bicycle bridge north of the Abernathy Bridge. And after evaluating multiple factors, including cost, environmental impacts, user experience, permitting and constructability, the options of putting a pedestrian and bicycle facility, adjacent to the Abernathy Bridge or north of were deemed infeasible. And so this project, Oregon City Westland Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge Plan, picks up where that 2016 assessment left off. And the alignment south of the Abernathy Bridge seemed more promising, but needed further investigation. So for this project, the consultant team is tasked with assessing a total of 5 alignment options. An alignment north of the Arch Bridge, considering Arch Bridge for just pedestrians and bicycles, no vehicle access, and then an option south of the Arch Bridge, and also 2 additional alignments that that the consultants identify as feasible. And so next slide. So the consultants have done some preliminary alignment considerations, and so I'm having a hard time seeing the screen. But here to the south is one that starts at 4th Street and via Morris Island, connects there. And then due to grade, there's a potential for attaching up to Mill Street, up higher there. Thank you, Dana. And another one that connects from 5th Street to Mill Street there. And the next one from 6th Street up to Mill Street up to in Westland. And then one is the Arch Bridge option, and then another one that is adjacent or next to it. And then finally, the 9th Street and Willamette Drive alignment. And again, these are just preliminary, alignments that we have not gone into, the environmental or much of the investigation yet. This is kind of literally lines on a map. And we wanted to get from you, are there fatal flaws with these that you may know of? Are there alignments that we're missing on this map? Because the next step is for the consultants to identify 5 of these that they will take to do the further investigation and do the analysis of, looking at cultural environmental impacts, looking at cost and additional feasibility assessments. And so we bring this to you today to see if you might have any initial reactions. But really, once we have the technical review and we have further conversations and further research done by the technical consultants, we will have more information to share with you to make a more informed decision. So again, this is just the first iteration of multiple as we continue to work on this project. Next slide. And these are some of the questions that we'll be asking stakeholders, focus groups, also you if you're interested in providing some feedback. Perhaps not today in real depth, but we can also provide these documents if you'd like to share your input at a later time. But the questions that we'll be asking based on the map that I showed you previously is asking which of the 2 initial potential crossing alignments do you believe are most promising? Again, to inform the 5 that the consultants will take to look at further. Do you see any other potential crossing alignments that you believe could be equally or more promising? What areas within the study area do you believe would make good locations for a crossing? Why not? And do you see benefits or burdens of having a new pedestrian and bicycle crossing within the study area. Next slide. And so next I'll talk about the project committee and opportunities for stakeholder engagement. This project has 3 committees, one of which is the project leadership team. This is comprised of key decision makers. For Oregon City, we have Commissioner McGriff, who's agreed to participate in this project. We also have city manager from Westland. Until they have a commissioner representative, the city manager will represent on this project. Clackamas County Commissioner Savas, Metro Councilor Lewis, and then ODOT Region Manager Ryan Winsheimer. And the project leadership team will attend the project advisory committee meetings and will also have some reserved sessions just for the executive, project leadership team if needed. Next slide. And the second advisory committee or team that is comprised of this project is the project advisory committee. And this is made up of multiple groups. I think there's about 20 representatives, and these are sort of the categories of folks represented in this advisory committee. There are governments with regulatory authority. Again, that's, the various agency partners that I mentioned. There's interested government parties, that's all the tribes that have interest in this project. We have shoreline property owners, that's PGE, Belgravia, and Grand Ronde. And then we also have additional appropriate representation, which are advocacy groups, Willamette Falls Foundation, and a number of other organizations. And we have a very long list of project advisory committee members that I can share with you if you're interested. And next slide. So the 3 sort of committee teams are informing this project are the PMT, which I outlined at the very beginning of this project, the 5 various agency staff. And then their role is to make decisions about the project process and provide guidance to the consultants. The project advisory committee, which I mentioned, they will review and provide input into the development of the concept plan, the purpose, need, evaluation, criteria, et cetera. And then project leadership team, which includes Commissioner McGriff, is to utilize the viewpoints of those who reside in the communities that the PLT serves and who are likely to be affected by the decisions. And then to provide a direct link to decision-making bodies and constituencies needed to support the adoption and implementation of the preferred concept plan. So the idea is that once this project is complete, the PMT, the project management team, will take the plan to Oregon City Commission and also to the Westland City Council. And you then will have the opportunity to adopt this plan and the preferred alignment and update your TSPs, your transportation system plan, so that, if the bridge landings end up in a private property, some of the properties along the shoreline, they can plan for that in their master planning, and also just use that as a way to identify funding for future design and construction. So next slide. And additional stakeholder engagement. These are opportunities for various stakeholders to provide input on this project. We'll have a continuous stakeholder comment log via any input received from the website, through the public open house, et cetera. There will be project partner coordination meetings. That includes meeting with you all and providing you with updates and opportunity to provide feedback. we started tribal consultation yesterday and had another meeting today with the various tribes and started the Section 106 process to inform them about the project. And we are also engaging in the PEL process, which is the project environmental linkages, which will, while this project is not entering NEPA at this phase, it will provide us with the credit so that we can apply what we find from this project into the NEPA process future down the road. And also, we will be holding stakeholder interviews, focus group work sessions. We have identified some of these folks, but if you have additional input on who we should be talking to about this project, we're welcome to hearing that. We'll also be having a virtual public meeting and open house. And then finally, a walking tour for the project management team, the project advisory committee, and the project leadership team to kind of, look at the site on the ground, look at various connections and opportunities for bridge landings. So there's a lot going on. Next slide. And a lot going on in a very short timeline and a very aggressive schedule. We kicked off the project in November. We hit multiple holidays. And so, the first item here is ongoing public outreach and engagement. We have a website, I think, as of today. We'll have a public open house in March. We'll also be, we have a draft of the purpose and needs statement and a draft of the evaluation criteria, which will be used to inform which alignment is the preferred option. And the little circles with the people in them, those are the project advisory committee meetings. There'll be 3 project advisory committee meetings. Commissioner McGriff, those are the meetings that you'll also be attending as a project leadership team member. And then next we'll be analyzing the Willamette River crossing locations and identify the preferred locations based on all the input that we receive. And also with the selection criteria, we'll do some scoring and evaluate the various options. And then in orange, it shows the scoping and design for the preferred bridge location. And then finally, we'll develop the final concept plan. So that'll conclude this project. And then after that, as I mentioned earlier, Oregon City Commission, as well as Westland City Council, will have the opportunity to adopt this project. And then once the local agency adopts this plan, then it can move up to Clackamas County and Metro to also adopt the plan. So again, a lot happening in the next 6 months. And there will be several opportunities for the commission to provide input, whether it's through staff and Dana, who's the Oregon City project management team representative, through Commissioner McGriff, through stakeholder engagement, if you would like to participate in that process, and then all the public processes that you see here. Next slide. And so finally, I just wanted to show, within our study area from the Abernathy Bridge all the way down to Willamette Falls, where the title is. Within our study area, there are a number of planned transportation improvements and redevelopment projects happening concurrently. There's the Willamette Falls Drive realignment and improvement, the Westland City side, the Oregon 43 multimodal safety project, the I-205 improvements project and the tolling project, as you are aware of, as well as multiple redevelopment projects that are outlined in the different shades here. And so we'll be coordinating, again, with all these projects and partners throughout the process. And then next slide. Lastly, we have Mandy Putney and Lucinda Broussard also here to answer any questions, but we are, as part of this project, have ongoing coordination with these two ODOT projects. The I-205 improvements project, which includes earthquake-ready improvements or rebuilds for the Abernathy and 8 other bridges, interchange improvements in addition of missing third lane to manage the bottleneck and improvement safety, and then the I-5, I-205 tolling project, which has dual objectives of reducing congestion and raising revenue. And we are coordinating with tolling, with the tolling project on traffic and modeling data. So with that, I wanted to go to the next slide and provide an opportunity for the commissioners to ask any questions or comments.
I'm going to let mine sink in for a few minutes. So if I get any other comments or questions from commission, and then I'll come back to myself because I have a lot.
Okay.
I don't know if you have more than I do.
Well, let's find out.
You want me to go
Go
ahead?
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you for that presentation, and yes, I'm looking forward to this. I did talk with Dana and John, and I have not received a list of the possible meeting times because I would like to know that as soon as possible so that I can work on my schedule. It's not super horrendous, but I do have some areas of my schedule that are verboten because it's dealing with self-care, and I'm sure many of you understand what that means. So I guess first of all, I'm interested in understanding where this project came about from, and you mentioned earlier that it was determined that there's certain routes weren't feasible, so Alakazam, now this project is. So to get behind where I'm getting from, it's like this project seems to be coming down from the state to the locals. And I'm a little nervous about that because all of us cities and counties, we all like our local control. So that's my first question. I probably have four questions for you. So we'll start with that one.
Okay, great. And yes, again, I want to reemphasize that this is a multi-agency partnership and that the locals and the regional partners showed strong interest for this project. And so this project, that I mentioned, some of the history was initiated before my time, and Mandy Putney was involved at that time. So I can give her the opportunity to chime in and give a more detailed background.
Can we go on to the next one? So then, one of my...
I'm happy to chat.
Oh, you're going to chime in. Okay.
Sorry, hi. I had a little delay getting on.
That's okay. Thank you.
But again, my name is Mandy Putney, and I'm currently the I-205 Improvements Project Director. I previously worked for under Ryan Winsheimer as the Region 1 Policy and Development Manager, and so helped to start this concept, the very early conversations with staff from Westland and Oregon City, as well as Metro and Clackamas County. And at that point, there was some pretty strong feedback from some of the staff about alignments that didn't seem feasible based on city priorities and landing locations. And so there was some general agreement that the three lines that Sandra shared first seemed like they would be viable for at least consideration. So I just want to reiterate that very much this is a partnership and an effort, and that ODOT is helping kind of host the conversation and facilitate the discussion, but we really see this as a project that will need to come with significant local input in order to move forward. So this is the reason that Sandra is here, hearing from you all today, is just to continue to gather that input and move forward.
Okay, so let me ask you a little bit about the decision-making process. I was noticing on the PMT that you have a non-elected person who is the Region 1 manager sitting on there, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what I'm concerned about is that there's already been some determination about where alignments could be possibly, and, I've been involved in a lot of ODOT projects over the course of my career, so this is not anything new to me. So I'm concerned that the decision-making process sounds to me like it's more reactive than proactive, and I would like to be more proactive, and I don't think these are all the alternatives that need to be considered. I feel very strongly that regardless of who made the decision about that the I-205 option was not feasible, that needs to be considered as one of the alternatives. Also, I think an alternative north of 205 needs to be considered. We have another adjacent jurisdiction. I know Gladstone isn't directly involved, but they have a major park facility across from Clackamat Park that has a significant number of boaters, anglers, walkers, hikers that are over in that area as well. So I think that that's something that should also be looked at, and then could possibly be, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it needs to at least be on the table. So I'm hoping that it's going to be more proactive than reactive. The other thing is that I was looking at the committee structure, and I'm a little bit concerned that you're not including the State Historic Preservation Office. We have 3 major historic facilities that we are talking about, which is the Oregon City Westland Bridge, National Register property. We have the locks, Willamette Falls Locks, which is National Register property. And we also have Willamette Falls itself, which is, a natural wonder. And there's going to be significant historic and cultural impacts to this, and they need to be at the table. I feel that they should not be brought in at the last minute saying, okay, here's the preferred alignment, what do you think? They should be at the table from the get-go to talk about the cultural, along with the tribes, but the cultural and historic aspects of these facilities is also one, just so you know, it's one of my interests as well. I also want to let you know that I'm a regular walker of the Oregon City Westland Bridge, and I obviously have some opinions about that, so that might be helpful to you since I walk it consistently. And I go over to Westland a lot. Sometimes I walk from my house to the grocery store in Westland, which is a nice little walk, and I enjoy it, so that could provide some perspective for you. So that's at least a little bunch of questions right there, and then I have just one more after that, so I'll take a break.
Thank you so much. Those are some excellent comments. And regarding SHPO, I'm glad you brought that up. That did come out yesterday in one of our tribal consultations as, whether or that they should be involved and where they might best be involved. And so our tribal liaison, an archaeologist, has reached out to SHPO to see who might be representing or where they might be best seated at the table. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sandra, will you also be involving the tribe's TIPO as well? And for the audience, that's the tribal state historic preservation person on each of the tribes. They have a TIPO, and then we also have our SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office.
Yes. So yes, we are looking into all of that. I appreciate your comment. And so we hope to have exact representation hopefully soon. And also with the I-205 option that you mentioned, we're happy to share the memo with you and with folks who are interested. I forgot to mention this when we were looking at the overview map, but as you can imagine, maybe using your imagination a little bit, but where the I-205 Abernathy Bridge crosses, the span of the Willamette River is much wider and significantly wider. And so considering that it was an issue not only with the cross and the length, but also with the navigational, with boats and such, I guess navigating fleets, that the height, the elevation of the facility would need to be a lot higher. And so to bring pedestrians and bicyclists up to that level and down and to connect to either side, those were also assessed. And so that that also informed the feasibility of those options. North of the Abernathy Bridge, there are some wetlands. And so combined with the environmental, the cost, and all those factors, again, they weren't feasible, but we're happy to share that information with you. And then was there another question? Or
The question about the decision-making process and the fact that you've got a non-elected person on the PMT.
Right. And so that decision was that, so Oregon City, Westland, Metro, and Clackamas County will all be taking this plan through adoption if desired. And so this is why we have your representation, as you will be making that decision. And so we want representatives from each of the various, commissions and, the elected level, so that they can inform the process and also weigh in on, whether to adopt the project or not. Whereas ODOT, we own the Arch Bridge, and there's a potential of an alignment connecting to Oregon 43, but we don't really, we won't be playing that adoption role. And so it made sense to us to have our region manager representing in the project leadership team.
Okay, I got the last question. So when we are talking about stakeholder, engagement, obviously you want to make sure you get a broad cross-section and a variety of folks, so that makes the stakeholder group, pretty gigantic, but, hopefully that's manageable. And I see you have two firms that are going to be managing citizen involvement and stakeholder engagement. How do you see the virtual sort of open house that we find ourselves in these days, these types of open houses? How do you see that playing into all of this and trying to get, enough participation? I mean, I obviously support, public engagement, to probably an extreme level, but it's been tougher these days, as I'm sure you are aware. But I just want to make sure that we're trying to think proactively about that. And there still is a substantial number of populations in our communities, all of our communities, that they don't go online, they don't do Facebook, they don't do whatever. So I'm hoping that you'll be engaging our our Oregon City News or the Portland Tribune or the Westland Tidings to get some information out, because some people do still read paper copies of things as opposed to being on the internet. So I think that's, looking at all different types of media. I also think in Oregon City, we need to be thinking about our adjacent neighborhoods. We've got Bolton in Westland, we've got McLaughlin in Oregon City, you've got a representative from the Downtown Association on this board. So I think that can probably get covered that way. So just want to make sure that we're thinking very broadly, and I think it wouldn't hurt at some point in time if this thing progresses, that some sort of informational session be given to the city of Gladstone. I mean, I don't have any skin in the game with them, but they are our next door neighbor, and like I said, we've got two significant parks at the mouth of the Clackamas that this may have an effect on, I don't know, but I'm just trying to think broadly about who else might be, involved.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. We are, constantly looking for additional folks to involve in this project. And I will note that, or share that we have taken extra time in this project to hire an equity consultant, and also look at some of, in terms of the public engagement process, how do we reach out to folks that haven't typically been at the table for various reasons, whether they just don't have the time or resources or interest, but they may benefit from a project like this. So we are actively engaging, the equity process, understanding what that means, how we do that. And so if you have ideas, we're all ears, but we can also share with you what that means. What are these equity tasks that we speak of? And one of the tasks is doing an equity analysis, looking at the demographics and who, again, should be at the table. We identified so far that it's the youth and the elderly population that we'd like to actively engage with. And so if you have ideas for how to reach out to them, we have some advocacy groups identified, et cetera. But yes, this is top of mind for us, and including equity is just good planning. But yeah, we are making a concerted effort to try to integrate that and do a good job with that.
All right, Commissioner O'Donnell?
I'm going to follow in the other commissioners' footsteps. My first question is really, why this project? Why now? And is it based on need, or is it a want? How did this originate? Is it a need-based project?
That's a great question, and I'm going to let Mandy jump in on that one since she's got more of the project history.
Sure, and I do think that is part of what Sandra identified, is to confirm that through this engagement that there is a need. I think that there is, at least at some of the staff level or kind of the planning level, and we definitely hear anecdotally from people that they're interested in wondering if other options might be better for a crossing in this area. Really, during the policymakers tour that Sandra mentioned, there was quite a bit of conversation about other options that might work. But I think that will come out during this process in terms of stakeholder input and public opinion. Is there really a need for another option? Are one of the crossings that are on the map or one that isn't there yet going to rise to the top of the list, or will there be feedback that says that actually that there isn't a need? At the earlier, some of the very early planning meetings, there also was a hope that maybe the Metro Regional Investment Measure would pass, and there were some program areas that would have provided funding for planning work and construction for projects like this. And so that also was kind of a prod to move forward with some of the conversations.
Quite honestly, I from that explanation, I can't arrive as being a need-based project. And need is generally generated at the grassroots level and driven up to state government. Yet this feels like it was once again driven by the state and ODOT and pushed down. And I mean, I've not had, I'll be honest, I've not had a favorable experience with ODOT. These communities haven't had a favorable experience with ODOT. I question how is this thought out. I don't feel that it's need-based. I question where the final ownership and maintenance would be. I question what the sources of funding would be. Have those things even been considered? Or is that too premature at this stage of the game?
I think those are all valid questions and all questions on the table. I will just say again that ODOT is not driving this process. There definitely was interest coming our way from county and city staff, as well as Metro staff, to consider different options. We were able to carve out a little bit of funding to pursue the conversation further. So we're here now having this conversation and working with partner agencies to consider what the next steps would be collectively.
I'll say again, in an environment that's starving for funding, a state that's hard pressed for funding, I'm curious where that would come from. As an elected official, I've never heard the expression that, man, we need a footbridge and a pedestrian bridge and a bicycle. I've never heard that until it came from the top, from you guys down. And is, again, I'll be honest, my experience in this community and these surrounding communities' experience with ODOT, especially with the I-205 tolling project, which apparently you're integral to that, I don't see a true partnership with ODOT. It's more a dictatorial, this is what we're going to do, and what form of this do you want? And honestly, if I was being snarky, the first question I'd ask is, well, do you plan to toll this pedestrian bridge? But we won't go down there. We won't be a wise guy. The purpose and need question looms high in my mind. The funding leads high in my mind. Other than the stated purpose of moving pedestrians and bicycles, you know, you start looking, and I agree with the other commissioner, McGriff, it's like, well, placement is everything. What purposes will this serve? Is it complementary to other projects like the Riverwalk? I mean, is our first priority actually moving the elderly and bicyclists and young, or is our first priority, what is, I guess I'm going to have to read your statement, your initial statement about that comes in the beginning of your flow chart. But the question in the end will be, what benefits are derived from the placement in different areas? If I listen to the presentation tonight, it sounds like the cities would say, again, I don't know the sources of funding, but are you telling me the cities would actually have a veto vote on this, or is it going to be another, we're going to do this, you just decide where?
If the outcome of this project is that there's a decision not, you know, that what we have now is what should be maintained, then that's a viable outcome.
Okay.
Can I make some comments?
Sorry, Commissioner Lausman?
Yes, so I'd like to make some comments from the Clackamas coordinating committee that I sit on. So this conversation has come up as far as safety and pedestrian connections between Oregon City, Westland, and Gladstone. And Gladstone currently has projects where they are working on their pedestrian bridge. They're making improvements to it. They've put in requests for funding. It's been through design phases. So they are well on their way of improving the bridge that would connect Oregon City and Gladstone. And that has been widely supported by Metro, Clackamas County, and Oregon City and Gladstone. So there's coordination on that piece of it. The other piece of it is the crossing of Willamette between Oregon City and Westland. And if you've ever been on a bike, which I have, to ride across the arch bridge, or tried to be on the sidewalk along with pedestrians in the 4 feet that's provided, 4 feet or less, you will realize that it doesn't feel like a very comfortable pedestrian crossing. So I think for safety reasons, I like the idea of considering a pedestrian crossing. I think it would be nice to have connections between our neighboring cities, and I think that was the goal from a regional perspective with Clackamas County and Metro, of making sure that pedestrians do have multi-access points of being able to cross both rivers, Clackamas and Willamette rivers, for either, particularly if you're low income and you're trying to make it to jobs. I mean, there's some low income neighborhoods in Gladstone and in Oregon City. So we're just trying to make some of these connections. So I think I don't have any problem with studying it and determining the purpose and need. I think in the larger regional coordination, we feel like there's at least a need to study it and perhaps make some improvements. So I guess, Dana, I don't know if you have anything else to add on the Gladstone piece and that connection of conversations there, but there was a bike tour that the electeds did that started, I think it started in Milwaukee and went down to Gladstone and then crossed over some of the bridge. And then they had to navigate the arch bridge, and it really highlights, if you ever try to do that bike pedestrian loop or connect between our cities, you will realize that there's some really difficult spots and we're not all that pedestrian friendly. So I'll just leave it at that. I do have a couple of questions, but I just wanted to interject since City of Gladstone has come up, and because I felt like I should comment that yes, there have been conversations about safety and some of these projects that we could put forward for either metro funding or some other funding pots that get discussed at the Clackamas coordinating level.
Just so you know, I've attended 2 meetings at Gladstone involving our bridge, their bridge work.
Their bridge.
And have, been, before I was commissioner, and it was very informative, and they were really glad that at least somebody from Oregon City was there, so
Yeah.
I gave some comments on that.
Okay. Commissioner O'Donnell, I'll turn it back to you. Sorry for interrupting your.
I was appreciative of what you said. I also feel like if our goal is simply the movement of pedestrians and bicycles, I mean, one option is would you consider a scaffolding on the exterior of the existing arch bridge? Is that out of the question? It'd probably be the cheapest solution. It doesn't add a lot of point loads to the structure, and it's probably the cheapest way to achieve it. So I balk at this for the reasons I stated. I don't understand the plan. I don't know who does own this if this structure were to be completed. Who owns it and who would maintain it in the future?
That's part of the implementation plan at the end of this project, is to identify who would maintain and own the facility.
Okay, to be determined.
Commissioner O'Donnell, did you just hear my silent scream when you mentioned attaching something to the bridge?
Oh, I'm sure you did. But,
I was like, ah!
we're respectful of each other, but we have different views on things.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have a couple of questions. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Still has some citizens out.
So, I want to say that, repeat that we definitely need to support our bikes and pedestrians, and I think we have some work we can do on that around Oregon City, and this is an example. I think my question is about the alternative of the Arch Bridge becoming a bike and ped only bridge. And so hypothetically, if that were picked, what other vehicular options do we have? Is ODOT proposing a vehicular replacement bridge if Arch Bridge were to become pedestrian only?
No, we are not.
Okay, so I think that is probably one of the largest concerns that I've heard about, and why that wouldn't garner support, because we still need a vehicular crossing. And so my hope is that when you go to the public and you ask for input, that you're really clear that when you pick the Arch Bridge as an alternative, that ODOT is not providing another vehicular alternative for how vehicles are going to cross between Oregon City and cross Willamette and get over to Westland and get on Highway 43. To me, that's a pretty large barrier, and I just want to make sure that we're very forthcoming with the public when we throw that alternative up there as it becoming pedestrian only. I can support it becoming pedestrian only too if you're going to build a multi-million-dollar vehicular bridge that's going to go right next to it and replace it. But I don't think that's what's on the table. And so I just want to make sure that we're being honest with folks when we're putting stars on a poster of saying, oh, I like that alternative and I like this alternative, that we're honest about what those alternatives really mean. And that for one, I have folks ask me why I don't believe that's a viable project, and that's exactly the answer. And I was waiting to get that confirmed from ODOT tonight, was that ODOT is not providing another vehicle crossing if we turn it into a pedestrian bridge. And as much as I love the Trillium Crossing in Portland, Portland has, 5 other bridges that are vehicular crossings in order to get across the river. So they could spare one for multimodal and pedestrians. We don't have that option. We've got one. And then my other thought was, are you going to be able to provide any more details on the alternatives when you ask for public input? So the map, I know you showed us tonight, I know it's really preliminary and it has just lines across it. Are there cost numbers? Are there any details? Or are folks just going to look at the map the same though we looked at it tonight and provide opinions on the location?
Correct. We will be doing further investigation. And so this isn't going to the public yet. Once we gather some input on these preliminary, the top 5, because currently there are more than 5 alignments. So we want to get sort of that preliminary feedback from everybody before we spend extra time and budget in investigating the next, the 5. And then once that's completed, we will have more information to share for each of the alignments.
Okay, yeah, because doing it without any cost, and if we're going for pie in the sky dream bridges, then that's one thing, but that's not reality. So having some cost associated with, how it's tying or crossing over Highway 99, obviously adds cost to whatever pedestrian bridge we would particularly put in there. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, since you're asking for input on the crossings, I like the idea of being close to the Willamette Falls Blue Heron project. However, my biggest concern would be that the project would get sucked into the Willamette Falls Riverwalk design and everything that's going on that project, and then potentially get delayed because it got sucked into
Or everything
another.
that's not going to be going on.
Right. I mean, we have no future eye into how the development of that is going to go. And as much as I would love for it to be really close, it makes me a little nervous to tie something into a project that has no real guidance and future of coming together anywhere in the near term. I'm afraid it would just derail this whole idea too, if this one ever got legs. So I'll leave it at that. Commissioner Smith, turn it back to you. Commissioner President Smith.
City Manager Tony Conkle.
Thank you, Commissioner President. I guess I just would, I appreciate the effort and the work to look at this. I just want to be clear that when it's said that the local jurisdictions were pushing this, it is because we were very disappointed that multimodal options were not included in the significant investment in the Abernathy Bridge. For a region and a state that prides itself on multimodal bike ped access, bus rapid transit, and or light rail, the decision was made that they are not going to include it in that project. And that is unacceptable.
Yes, thank you.
And so this isn't the locals pushing an alternative bridge location. It is the locals demanding that what we are required to do at the local level is done by the state. So this isn't the locals pushing this. We're pushing it because it wasn't included and it should have been. And, the best I've heard is that attaching a pedestrian connection to the Abernathy Bridge is going to comprise its integrity. Then we're really cutting it pretty close on that bridge. So, like I said, let's just be clear as to why we're having these conversations. And like I said, I appreciate them, but I do not understand how building a brand new bridge doesn't allow us to also consider the 205 option. We're into it for, I don't know, what's the bridge up to, 600 million? So I just wanted to clarify how we got here.
Well, that's.
And that this isn't just, we are pushing it because it is a state requirement to provide multimodal opportunities for bike ped. And it was discarded early on the 205 project.
My compliments to City Manager Conkle for that summation, because he's dead on. We have to worry if the seagull is going to land on the 205 bridge, it'll collapse. Come on, folks. You're right.
Okay, so now I will go with my comments, and I may be a little snarkier than Commissioner O'Donnell. But I will say this. We started off this commission meeting talking about how good a team this is, this commission, and our city manager. This is a good team. And it's a good team because everyone has targeted the questions that I want to target. And I'm going to add to it a little bit. But I'm glad we got a clarification for what the real purpose that we are a partner. And by the way, slapping our logo on something doesn't make us a partner. A conversation does. And this is our first one. And I think I'm really irritated by the fact that this is the third conversation with the state regarding 3 projects that have all been separated, and strategically so, I think. And all of them are very vague, but they're all intertwined. But yet, if you go on the internet and look for them, they're not connected. So we're talking the I-205 project expansion, we're talking the tolling project, and we're talking this bridge. Now, we know that the tolling project is something that this city is going to have a hard time supporting. We know that the I-205 project has a lot of concerns from this city and the local cities, and we know that this project with the Oregon City Westland Bridge is going to be just as difficult. And I'm glad that Commissioner McGriff is on this committee, but I will tell you, we're going to be following this very closely. And here's what I want to do. Can we go back to that list of questions, community questions that are going to kind of be asked about this project on the slideshow? Because I think Commissioner Rachel Lyle-Smith made a really important point that I wanted to touch on, which was, are we being honest with this community about what the real intentions are here? And here's what I have learned by working for the city and school district for so long. The way that you word questions can really dictate what the final outcome of the answers are. So if you look at these questions, which two initial potential crossing alignments do you believe are most promising? Those are the ones that you think are good. Do you see any other potential crossing alignments that you believe could be equally or more promising? Also good. What are the areas of study do you believe would not make good locations for the crossing? Okay, so that one is real specific, but they should also be, you know, are there any deal breakers? And the last one, do you see the benefits or burdens? Okay, so let's look at the documentation. Other than tonight's presentation, presentation was the first time I've actually really seen that closing the arch bridge for just pedestrians was an actual plan. But yet if you read your document and flyers to the community, it all emphasizes new crossing. So nothing that you have in that document to the community really acknowledges the fact that one of the potential ideas is to closing the arch bridge to traffic. Because the truth is, the community of Oregon City is not going to buy that. And you should know that from the beginning. And if you don't know that right now, hopefully this meeting you'll understand that that's a deal killer. And my worry here is that you are kind of creating a scenario where we're going to say, oh, there's all these 5 different scenarios, when in the end, we know that the cheapest scenario is closing the Oregon City Westland Bridge to traffic. And why does it make sense for ODOT to want to close that bridge? Because they're going to start tolling the freeway. And the only question that has come up is, how are you going to deal with traffic coming over the Oregon City Bridge? And how are you going to deal with it? You're going to close it. So if this is all just a mass-like process to give the public a choice and direct their choice to the ultimate goal, which is closing the Oregon City Bridge for pedestrians, then you need to know you're going to have a long process ahead of you. And in the end, it's going to be this conglomerate committee that's going to make a recommendation, not the individual cities. So the truth is, you know, you're going to have baby cities that don't adopt this plan at all. And the other worry that I have is these conversations are not happening at the same time. So you're going to have this conversation with the community about this process of what to do with this pedestrian crossing, but you're not tying in the question of tolling, and you're not tying in the question of why this wasn't addressed with the project going across the river to do the I-205 project in the beginning. These are all 3 conversations that have been split apart deliberately by the state. And have been brought to us 3 different presentations, all of which have been ridiculed, by the way, by this commission. These are the same project. And if you don't start acknowledging that as a discussion as a whole, I think you're going to have a lot of problems selling this to the community. And you know, this idea of, you know, kind of running this past during a pandemic, you know, we're keeping an eye on this, and I think the public's not going to be so, you know, not going to let this kind of fly under the radar. All right, there was some mention in that the Highway 43 connection. Can you speak about that? I guess what I'm really wondering here, Westland has definitely spent a lot of time planning roundabouts and traffic circles and things like that on the Westland side. I can't imagine that they'd be planning that if the Oregon City Westland Bridge ultimately was going to be closed to traffic. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. These are all tied together. All right, I guess I'll end it at that. I don't necessarily have a question, but and the questions that have been answered so vaguely that I don't bother asking another question. So without any other comments, I guess we'll move on to the next topic. Does anyone else have anything to say?
No, I'll just thank them for coming, and I'll look forward to getting our commission's input and our community's input as I participate in this process.
Right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right, we move on to citizen comments. Katie, do we have any citizen comments tonight?
Yes, we do. We have two folks that are here in the audience that we are just now asking Carla Laws to enter the commission chambers. So please give us a second here. Go ahead. Carla, please begin by stating your first and last name and city of residency for the record, and you have up to 3 minutes.
My name is Carla.
So long.
You want me to take off my mask?
Whatever works for you.
My name is Carla Laws, and I live in Oregon City on Roosevelt Street. And I'm here. I've been a bit concerned because we have seen these trees cut down in our neighborhood at the Electric Lettuce, and finding out from neighbors that a lot of neighbors are concerned too. And it's, it's for us, it's discouraging because it is privately owned land, but we had a tree covenant we signed for our neighborhood for city land, and it's right next Molalla Avenue. And finding out from neighbors that it's been there a long time and we're very discouraged about it, and we were wondering what the city's position is on that. We mentioned it last time at the CIC, and the city said that they were enforcing code. We're wondering, there was 2 great pin oaks that were beautiful, and we want to encourage that cities, trees, even if they're on private land where public, there's a responsibility to the community. And we're wondering in the future what the position is on that, if the permits are being enforced on that property. It's 279 on Molalla Avenue. So could I get kind of some information on that, or what do we know about it? Anyone know anything about it, or what if there's any code enforcement on that, or any details that I can share?
I think we probably have staff get back to you on that.
Okay.
Or we can tell Laura pop up.
It's just so important that we try to, to encourage as many trees to be protected as possible for the canopy. A lot of neighbors were complaining because about how beautiful it is. We're going to mention it at our Barclay Hills Neighborhood Association meeting next Tuesday. So anyways, I just wanted to mention it, and hopefully we have businesses and overall people that live on Molalla in public spaces that encourage them to preserve their trees and help our canopy. Because those trees gone now, we can't replace them. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carla.
Laura, did you have a comment? Are you good to? Okay. I think you'll get in touch with her. Okay. Any other citizen comment this evening?
Yes, we do have Dorothy Dahlstrid, and she's entering the commission chambers.
Right. Carl out there. You get a grand entrance with it like this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dorothy Dahlstrid. I live in Oregon City. I have been a member of the Natural Resources Committee. I'm a member of the Oregon City Parks Foundation. I volunteer. I do everything around this little town, but mostly I squawk about trees. I guess you all know I'm here. Carla was already speaking about the property at 279 Malala Avenue. These trees were removed, as far as I can tell, without authorization. I went and spoke to the people at the electric lettuce, and they openly said, oh yes, we asked our landowner to take them down. They must have been diseased, and the leaves were falling on cars, and the trees, if you look where they're positioned, they're in the driveway heading out, the big ones, the big pin oaks. The other ones that were on Warren and Milne are regular hybrid street trees, which I don't have a great respect for, because I think we need more native trees. But anyway, it's so disappointing that local businesses don't respect our community, that they can just willy-nilly, without permission, cut something that was built into our planning, that they have a complete disregard to the effects that it has on our community. They can cut down trees that are decades to hundreds of years old without any recourse that affects our community, and it'll take us decades to get anything close to its canopy again. We're losing our canopy. When I first got here in Oregon City, we used to look like a timber town because we were a timber town. You can't find a fir. The tallest fir was in this location. They removed it because there was a root had lifted part of a driveway, or not driveway, but a curbside. Very well could have been hit by a delivery truck on that turn, same place where the trees are. I think that there has to be some type of accountability, that if they have, that they should be fined, it's finable. When you're a business, you have to consider your community. They should either have to remove them, or if they remove them, they have to replace them, and if they took down their perfectly healthy trees that were decades old, replace it with the same caliber of a tree. That'll teach somebody a lesson. I know what it cost to buy a 25-year-old tree. I bought one, and now it's gonna be on the Heritage nomination, I hope. So anyway, we're gonna bring this up with our neighborhood. I've gotten phone calls from a lot of different people. Thank you all very much. I always talk over my time. But I would really like to know what this will happen to this landowner for being the second offense. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Just a question for staff. And I've sat on a number of building projects, both private and public, and there's always a landscape requirement. Does this fall under that purview at all?
We do have regulations for both street trees as well as trees on private properties, and there's a process for people to go to remove trees, and it does require mitigation plantings, and those plantings could vary by the size that was removed. In this particular case, we're in the middle of an active code enforcement on it, so I can't divulge details about this particular one, but in general, yes, we regulate trees on commercial property and require the permitting process.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, any other citizen comment?
There is not, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the adoption of the agenda, and we have already, we can remove 7A, because we've already accomplished that. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
No.
No.
Okay, we can, we're all okay to adopt the agenda as is?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll move into public hearings, and we have first reading of ordinance number 21-1003, amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, and I believe Laura Turway.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to introduce Christina Robertson Gardner, a senior planner with the city.
Thank you, Laura Turway. Let me get my brief slideshow started. This is the first reading for a portion of the Public Works amendments to the Oregon City Code. The Public Works Department has put together a package of amendments to address needs for clarifications and technical review. This is a type 4 land use process, which means it went through the Planning Commission and is now at the City Commission for hearings. Legislative Reviews do not require disclosure of ex parte conversations. That's the whole part of the legislative process, is the whole community gets a chance to have discussions with their elected officials about potential code changes, but any actual conflicts of interest should be disclosed. There is a public comment matrix attached to the agenda that has been tracking public comments related to this application. As this application has many components to it, the larger package of amendments will be divided into a series of smaller amendments, which will each be considered independently through separate ordinances. This approach will allow the City Commission and the public the ability to review each package closely while moving efficiently through the review process. The items which the City Commission has identified comfort with will be proposed for approval sooner than those items of concern which will be modified in work sessions until they are ready to move forward with the hearing. This evening, we have a proposed first package, which was reviewed, portions of it were reviewed in work sessions on December 8th and December 16th. The package in front of you this evening are amendments to Chapter 13 for water and sewer services, Chapter 12, obstructions, and Chapter 17.80, communication facilities. This would be the first reading this evening. The second reading for this package would happen on January 20th, and with that, the associated resolutions would occur at that meeting for the second reading. The rest of the package of amendments have been broken up into a tentative timeline of kind of what we're calling Package 2. We're looking at a March adoption process with a February 9th work session to discuss review of capital improvement projects through the land use process. So I've identified the chapters that have been identified for Package 2, and this is in your commission report. This is a tentative schedule, so if the first reading happens this evening, kind of this is what would be following. Package 3 is looking at amendments to geologic hazard overlay districts, so that would happen in April with a March 9th work session. So this evening, we're looking at a first reading of Package 1 and a continuation of the hearing to the next meeting to continue with the second reading and the further packages. So kind of identify the options for the City Commission this evening. Option 1 is to approve the first reading of the package and continue the public hearing. Option 2 would be continuing the public hearing, not making first reading and providing staff additional recommendations for revisions, or 3, continuation to a different date certain. Josh Wheeler, our Assistant City Engineer, is here this evening to answer any particular questions you have, as well as I'm available to answer any process questions. I will go back to the Package 1, which we have here this evening, which is attached. There's red line chapters attached to your agenda packet, as well as a clear version attached to the ordinance. So I'm available for any questions the commission may have.
Okay, so first of all, do we have any opinion on how to move forward? Commissioner O'Donnell?
No, I read what I thought was tonight's first, the water and sewer pieces. And I'm sure we have questions throughout this thing, but I have specific questions on the water and sewer services as written.
Okay, do we want to do questions, or should we open up the public hearing?
I'd go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Okay, let's do that. Open up the public hearing, see if we have comments from the public. That was my...
It's gavel.
You can try.
Katie, do we have any public comment, or do we have any?
I do not believe we have any public comment.
No.
I do not believe we have any public comment at this time. Thank you.
You could do a Boris Yeltsin and use your shoe.
Okay, I will close the public hearing, but we assume it'll be continued to the next meeting after our conversation. Okay, so Commissioner O'Donnell, you have a question?
I do, and I'll direct them to Josh. And my first concern, and I'm going to limit my questions, but on the 1304, 1308 piece on water and sewer services, they are not consistent on their right of access to property. The one on the water, and I'll do this from memory, seems to give unbridled access to to buildings and property. And I think the one on the sewer, which is a similar statement, is much better written as far as what it takes to enter properties and within the buildings. And I think that should be reviewed and clarified. And obviously I can't read it in the small print, but
It's 1304.140, because yes, I had it written down as well.
yeah, it's, you know, I'm sensitive to those things that involve search and seizure and private property and entering into it. And I did not think that the one in the water component of this presentation tonight is written in accordance with the law. And maybe I can hand this off to Commissioner Lyle Smith, who has better access to the documents.
I had the same.
Yeah.
I've got it in front of me, if you'd like me to respond.
Go ahead.
Okay. The right of entry in the water section is existing language that we did not change. It's been there for a long time. So we did not officially review that. However, there is a difference in right of entry for water than there is for sewer. For water, the purpose of right of entry is twofold. One, to be able to read the meters. Sometimes meters are not out in the right-of-way or adjacent to the right-of-way. Sometimes they're in unusual locations that require our meter readers to be on private property. And that's something that has occurred for many, many years. And so that's why they need free access at all proper hours of the day to be able to read the meters. Also, if there was a water break and the resident, either it's a vacant house or there's a resident that's vacationing in Florida for the next 3 months, whatever the reason is, you could easily have our staff needing to come on site to stop the water leak that would be causing negative impacts to that home or the other homes. And so there's reason to have full access to the site. And that's what the language does say, for the purpose of inspecting the condition of the pipes and fixtures and the manner in which the water is used, and for the purpose of fixing water rates for the premises. So the second part of that statement is for the water reading. The first part of that statement is for those breaks that could occur in a service.
Josh, real quickly, what was that code number? I'm putting that on the screen.
13.04.140.
140, okay, it was one more.
And then the sewer, we actually did make updates to that, and the purpose of updating the sewer right of entry was for the future inflow and infiltration program that affects the sewer services, the private laterals to the home. We were looking for access by a camera to be able to televise the sewer service so that we could tell people what their condition of their service was. And through review of the Planning Commission, they asked that we were very specific that the right of entry was only the camera and that property owners would be notified, so that we do not have the right to physically place ourselves on the property. We only have the right to place a camera in the sewer. And so that's why those two rights of entry are written differently, because they serve quite a different purpose.
And I will respond to that. I have no problem with the sewer component. It seems properly written, but your verbal summation of the need for the water entrance into a private residence or building is not reflected in the language in that code. If you want to say under exigent circumstances to prevent danger or damage to life or persons, access, but you need to limit access. As it stands now, it gives unbridled access to go into it. And the reasons stated, which are now not on my screen again, they don't justify going into the house. I understand reading meters, but when you start entering residences or businesses without consent of the persons, other than under exigent circumstances, and that's how the language needs to read. And I'll stand by that statement.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I have the same exact notes. I'm not at all in agreement with that section 13.04140. And I don't like the term proper hours. That in itself is way too vague. I thought we did a great job on the sewer side of improving that language, but I can't approve that section as it stands right now. And I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell's comments that I think it could be rewritten, pretty easily.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Lyle, do you have more, or?
Oh, yeah, I have more, but
Yeah,
Commissioner.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'm going to take I saw that as well, and I wanted to take sort of a middle of the road. I guess I must have missed the word building, because I read this, you're talking about 1304-140 as the premises, so.
It says building, though.
Yeah, I now see the word building, and the reason I didn't object to it is because I want to give you a personal example. I was out of town one December, and one of my outside pipes was spewing water. My neighbor called the city. They came onto my property and turned it off so that it wouldn't, blow up the pipes or anything of that sort. And my neighbor called me to let me know that the city was going to come and do that. And believe me, I was eternally grateful, because I was able to call a plumber and get it taken care of before I came home. So I don't have any problem with the premises, and I think that's where most of the meters and things are, or, outside pipes that might explode. I'm not really sure. Do we have a situation where we would have the water mains or anything that the city might be needing to access that are inside of a building? I guess that's where I had my question. I just wasn't familiar with where there might be something like that, where we'd have to enter into a premise.
Well, and I would respond by saying the language that Commissioner Lyle Smith and I propose provide for that necessity. Under exigent circumstances to prevent damage to life or property, access would exist.
So could we just amend it to include that, to make it crystal clear? I don't have any problem with people entering the property, because if you let something go, it's going to cause flood or damage to somebody else or to themselves, or, it could be all sorts of situations on the exterior, on the property itself. So you okay with that, John?
So there is instances, especially in our commercial districts, where we've got backflow preventers inside buildings. A lot of our older parts of town have, fire connections, and there may not even be a lot of our fire connections on commercial buildings aren't even metered. So there's component of that water system that's inside the building. This section is again, we focused most of our changes on areas where we wanted to make changes. It wasn't a comprehensive review, and in hindsight, seems like that is kind of, when we touch a piece of code, we need to look at the whole code. But in this case here, I just want to be clear, there would never be an instance where we would take access to a property without, even an emergency where there's a broken water line or something, somebody's going to have to let us into the house. Or into the business. We're not going to, break our way in. It's more working with the property owners and making sure they give us access to do inspection of backflow preventers, for instance. And so that's the way this code is written. If it's too restrictive and the property owner chooses to not allow us to do that inspection work, then we would have a problem. So that is a pretty big difference between the sanitary sewer and the water. And I'm trying to reread it and refresh myself again, but we may have free access at proper hours. Proper hours, what does that mean? I guess it depends on the business. Sometimes we're doing those accesses, if we have to shut something off and get access to that backflow preventer. In some business cases, we're doing that, after hours, late after hours, sometimes, just to help work with that business. So proper hours is not, it could be, in the morning, early, or it could be during regular business hours, but we would coordinate that with the property owner. And, of all parts of the building and premises, that's a little broad. I think you know, we could define that further to be all parts of the building and premises that are, you know, it does say which may be delivered from, you know, Water City mains. So I think we're trying to narrow that. I suppose that could be rewritten differently, but I think the main thing here is that there are instances where we need access to property. We're always going to pursue the property owner for that permission, and we've been working under this code for a very, very long time. So, could it be a little better? Sure. I just think that we're still going to need that code provided access for those situations that are more, probably not, you know, I don't think we're talking about your residential home here where there is a meter stop. You know, I think Josh's point was right. Those meters aren't always on private property. I mean, always in the right of way. Sometimes they're, you know, several feet into the property. In those cases, again, it'd be nice to have this kind of language that wouldn't prohibit that, so that we're having to notify those people. We've been going to those meters for years now without problems. Our meter reader doesn't really, he's, you know, they're a contract employee. They're running around checking meters all the time. And if they're not in the public right of way, they would still go in and read that meter. So this does give us that flexibility. It's not been a problem. We don't foresee it being a problem. I'd love to get this code. I guess, was there other things? I know, Rachel, it sounded like you had some other things. If this is the only thing, you know, I hear you a little bit, but just keep in mind, we do need that flexibility of business access, commercial access.
I'm sorry, John, but I stand by, my concern is unreasonable searches and seizures. My concern is access to private property. If you want to put in verbiage like with the consent of owner and the other things we talked about, I'm fine with it, but this does not, I just don't, if you have a reason to believe that some theft of water is occurring, then you go get yourself a warrant and go do the inspection. But this thing is so vague, so broadly written, inspecting the condition of the pipes and fixtures and the manner in which water is used. You know, I think it could be written much better, and I'll stand by it. And until that's changed, I'll be a no vote on it. So, go as you will.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, Ms. Turway, did you have something vital to add?
I was just going to add to the commission that since we're coming back with multiple packages and this is the first package, you can always amend or adopt this tonight, and then we can come back with that specific 1304-140 and go through that at a work session with you with a future package, because we have 2 more coming to you.
Well, how about I have a list.
We get right before.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Please,
sorry, what
go
did you
ahead.
say?
No, please proceed, Commissioner
Okay.
Smith.
So starting at the top with 1304.120, I'm not sure why you didn't change the title. It's still called Plumber's Report. Maybe that is code for plumbers and they know exactly what you mean, since you took the word plumbers out of the text and it no longer seems to apply to plumbers. So anyway, just a comment that I can't make the connection between the title of that section and the text that's there. So I would recommend changing the title. We've already talked about 140, which was the right of entry. If you want to scroll down, I'll keep going. 13.04.200. Granted, I'm looking at the red line, which is what I think Katie has on the screen. So the word backflow is missing the B. It's approved ACFlow as it is, so it needs a B. That's just a grammar thing. If you scroll down to 1304.260, so my question here is mainly just more for my edification. because there's the same kind of language in the sewer section. So why are we charging folks outside of city limits 1.5 times the rate charged to people within city limits?
John, do you have an answer for that? Or the
And
finance?
it shouldn't be because they're just outside the city limits. Obviously, we're providing a service, a water or sewer service to them because they requested service, they haven't been annexed. I don't know what the scenario is, but it's gotta be more than just they're outside of an administrative line on a map. What's the reason?
There is that, and that this is kind of standard language for most agencies or many agencies. So the citizens of the city essentially get, a rate, and anybody that is not inside the city and not a city taxpayer. I don't know that we have many of these, to be honest with you. There's sometimes those short periods of time when they're needing water service because they're well and they're trying to get through the annexation process, and in that process they're paying that higher fee. So this, should it be 150%? Should it be 120%? Should it be the same rate? We had some discussion similar to this when we were talking in Clackamas River water. So they were, there was a concern about the fact that, we have these folks that are still on CRW water but are outside the city. There's a couple of islands like that, and they had some concerns about the same thing, but that has been a standard language. It's pretty typical for most agencies to do that. It's there's so few of them. I'm not that concerned about it. I think there have been other commissioners that have felt pretty strongly about wanting to charge other than that. Maybe not on this commission, but in the past.
Okay. Mr. Kabizman, is there a legal piece here?
There is some legal implications, but more just, I wanted to give, some perspective on this, that there is an obligation to serve those people within the city. There is not an obligation to serve those outside of the city. So we can choose to or choose not to provide water outside of the city. Typically we have, and this is true in most cities, and the idea is that we want to charge, we're going to charge more because we want to encourage annexation. If people want to take advantage of living adjacent to city and get those city services, they should pay for become part of the community, become part of the city. That is, as I understand the history of why extraterritorial water charges are greater than those within the city.
And let's remember, outside of the city, you are not paying city taxes. Exactly. And we are providing that service. We are maintaining that service.
Okay.
It's a public line to provide it.
Right. Right.
So, and there's other administrative costs that goes associated with that are not collected.
Yeah, I was just reading this and that
I didn't have a problem with it.
It got my attention, and I noticed it was also in the sewer. So I wanted an answer, so I understood what the answer was, in case someone else. Okay, so my last thing on the water piece is section 280, 04-280. And my questions are, where is the income criteria documented? And then my second question is, why is the language specific to owner-occupied residents only? Because I feel like if I were renting a place, I would still have to pay a water bill. And so I'm trying to figure out, am I reading this right, that rental units won't qualify for financial assistance, I guess? Is that it?
Some units, the landlord pays for the water,
correct.
and others they don't.
Understanding, Commissioner. This language was written by the Finance Department between Ryan Brady Hoff and I believe Wyatt Parno before he left. I don't know if Mr. Zook knows this program yet in his short time with the city. But that's where the language came from, because they felt that the previous language that talked about senior and disabled rate was not clear to what the actual way we process it is. So they wanted to update the code to be in line with what the process is. Where lists lie and how they're created is a finance department question that I don't have the answer for. But they may have, I just don't know if Mr. Zook has that at this point in his.
Okay.
In the finance department, we have a reduced rate application process, and it lays out income levels for individuals residing in the home. So just give you an example. One person household maximum income equals 25,983 yearly income. So, you know, it's not codified, but it is on the finance page of what that program is.
But that doesn't require the residence or the building to be owner occupied. I feel like there's a discrepancy. Somehow there's text in here that says an owner occupied residence. So I'm questioning whether or not the words owner occupied needs to be in here, particularly if if that's not a requirement from the financial side of the paperwork too. I just noticed that the owner occupancy piece creeped in, and I wasn't sure if that was intentional or maybe I was questioning whether or not it needed to be there. Because I feel like if someone's living there and they need financial assistance, I'm not sure that I would make them have to be. Owner occupancy is one of those things we have to be careful about, so.
Yeah, I think the reason behind that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Conkle, that all water bills are paid by the owner of the residence. And so if you're living there, then you have the financial assistance. If you're not living there, then you're charging your renter whatever you're charging them. I don't believe renters pay the water bills directly. Am I correct, Mr. Conkle?
I'm going to have to do a little research on the renters.
I think they're
Probably apartments now.
definitely, they're responsible, the owner is responsible. And that's again, another thing that many agencies have, which is if it's a rental property, it's still the owner who's ultimately responsible for that payment.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the renter and the owner don't have an agreement, but it's the owner who's ultimately responsible for that.
There was a renter.
Yeah.
And they pay the water bill.
Yeah.
They might be able to apply for assistance, who knows?
But not if it's not owner occupied.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just questioning whether that owner occupancy language needed to be in there versus just a residence that's paying, you know, that anybody in that residence that qualifies for a reduced user rate or something, whatever. I'll leave it to you guys.
No, I agree with you. Commissioner Lau-Smith, I actually agree with you. I mean, in most apartments, the renter does not pay the water, but if you're renting a home and the agreement stated that you had to pay the water bill, you know, we've eliminated those renters from the possibility that if they were financially strained, they couldn't get the support. So I agree with what you're saying.
Is there a strong case from staff? Yeah, is there a strong case from staff on why it needs to be there? I guess I would be interested. We don't have to solve it right now, but since maybe I'm springing something new on you, I wanted to mention it. That's all I have for water.
Well,
We can, like I said, and we did, or like Josh said, that language came from the finance department, so we will have to pursue that.
Commissioner McGriff?
I just had a human interest, historic sort of question for John. So when you came to work for the city of Oregon City, did we still have a water superintendent?
Well, we had a supervisor.
Okay, because I was just.
And we have a direct, what we call a direct responsible charge, who is also our water and now we call him water division manager.
Okay, I was just being a little nostalgic because I remember the last person that I remember had that title, and Rocky may remember this, was Bob Jackson.
I do remember.
And there was a water superintendent and a sewer superintendent and a sanitary superintendent. So you're just changing the titles to match what you have in your division now as opposed to what we used to have back in the day.
Okay.
I'd like to correct the Commission President. I think the language could simply reflect that in the case of a renter who is directly responsible for the payment of the water, if that renter can provide proof of financial hardship, they would also qualify. And I'll leave it at that.
I think that's a good amendment. I know in every
Okay,
house
so
that,
direction from the commission here, do we want to, bring this back, or we want to fix it now and approve it, or what?
I think we could approve it and fix it kind of all at the same time. They could bring back the corrections as for the second reading. I know in every house that I've ever rented, I was responsible for the water bill. The owner of the house was not. And when I owned a rental, my tenants were responsible for paying the water bill. I think your suggestion is reasonable.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to move the,
Are you doing the whole package?
No, there's still some more sewer stuff. There's sewer stuff, sorry. Can we back?
Well, let's go.
Yeah, let me back off, sorry. My brain just kind of went ahead.
So I guess I would just check with folks that, on the temporary obstructions, so I've moved on to 12.
You're on the sidewalk one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sidewalks, street sidewalks, public places.
Okay, hold on a second, I'm gonna get.
I gotta find it too.
Can everyone see chapter 12 now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Here, Christina, it's down at 1204-120.
We've kind of gone over this one with a fine-tooth comb before.
We have, and they were bringing back changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of it, I just kind of want to make sure I understood that if somebody wanted to have a sidewalk sale, and because if I remember right, when we came out of the last conversation, we just thought it could be much simpler than the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it is still, I thought we had asked for a map to see where we were talking about where this applies, because in our last conversation, I think we learned that it only applied to certain streets.
Right.
So I still don't know where those are.
I can respond to that.
Okay.
So we made a revision to code based on the comments that were provided in December to 1204-130.
Mm-hmm.
And we stated a business in a designated area will be required to obtain the renewable right-of-way permit, the same thing that's used for the temporary seating. If they want to do that on a regular basis for more than a 60-day period, and then if they want to do less than 60 days, like just a weekend sale, then they can use a basic temporary permit, which is the small one that we already have.
Okay, and how much is that fee?
So currently, the temporary obstruction permit, the rates just went up. It's less than $100. It was $56. I don't know what it raised to. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the other thing that we're doing is on January 20th, we are bringing the commission a resolution to designate sidewalk sales on specific streets. And then on February 9th, we're going to come to you to discuss the fee for the renewable right-of-way permit, because it was discussed at the last meeting and has been discussed previously with the Chamber of Commerce, I believe it was, that fee is too high for the renewable right-of-way permit. So we're coming back in February to have a work session on that to discuss what we would propose that fee as and give you a comparison of the region, and then get direction on how to amend our fee schedule for that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, that's part of the conversation. I felt like I needed more information on it. And then, my only comment is that I was wondering about the, site plan requirement for a temporary obstruction. I guess it'd be in that, section B that says temporary obstructions, and then number 4 kind of goes through all of the list of things that need to be provided. And the first one is site plan showing right-of-way, utilities, driveways as directed by staff. So are you saying that anybody who needs to put like a pod on the street, a moving container, or these debris dumpsters, seating, needs to do a full site plan with right-of-way, utilities, driveways, and all of that? Am I reading that right?
You are reading that right. However, you may be thinking about it in a way that's not as detailed as you may think it is from what I'm getting from you.
Okay.
When we say site plan, it doesn't mean an engineered plan. It doesn't mean one that looks all pretty with from an architect or an engineer or something like that. A site plan can merely be you print out an aerial photo that shows those right-of-way lines and the existing driveways, and you draw a square of where you want that pod, or you draw some squares of where you want tables and chairs, and that's a site plan. And that's what most people do that we accept.
Okay. Well, that sounds good, because, yeah, I would be concerned if it was like an architect, $1,000 cost to, have serious site plans.
Or they could just call the city and ask the city for a copy of a map and draw it on there.
Oh, yeah, I did think about that, or like.
Usually what happens, they come into the counter, we print it out for them, they draw a box, and we give them a permit within about 15 minutes.
Okay, okay, that sounds good. Okay, so that's all I had on this chapter, or this section. Did you have something
If I,
before we leave it?
yes, Commissioner Smith, if it's okay, I just wanted to make a general comment about this particular section, is that over the last couple of weeks surrounding January 1st, I received a couple of phone calls from business owners downtown who, and I'm saying this politely, alleged that the city was harassing them with regard to this particular section. And I do want you to know that my response to both of those business owners was that they could not put obstructions in the sidewalk or the right-of-way that impeded pedestrians or presented a public fire and life safety concern. So I said, if the city is talking to you about that from a fire and life safety standpoint and an access standpoint, they are not harassing you. They are keeping you safe, and they are doing what I would call risk management on your behalf so that you do not get sued. So I do want you to know that I do appreciate the staff talking to some of the business owners, and I'm sympathetic to them with regard to their outdoor seating, but we cannot put the public in danger, and that was my response to both of those property owners.
Okay, I have one more.
Right.
Did you have something?
I was just going to try and summarize, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Really quickly, the sewer piece. I don't know who's sharing screen. Is that Christina? You want to bring up the first page of
Sewer? Sure, 1 second.
the sewer? Exhibit 5. So if you scroll down just a little bit to 1308-020, I'm wondering if Chief Band knew that it was his responsibility to determine if houses and premises in the district have sewer service. I found that really interesting, and I assumed that was because maybe kind of leaning toward like squatters or people going to houses that didn't have water and sewer services, but I was like, oh, look at that. It's the duty of the chief of police.
He's personally going out there.
Yeah, I was surprised that was in there, and when I asked on another question, I'm sure Josh would say, we didn't look at that piece, and we weren't gonna, because we didn't look at it, and that's why we haven't addressed it, but,
It is one of Jim's favorite duties.
You're correct, Commissioner, that we didn't look at this piece because
there were no changes.
But we did notice it, and myself and John Lewis were also amused by it. And you're absolutely right. The purpose behind that code is only code enforcement and people under the chief of police have the right to do the things that that section says. So that's why it's chief of police. Ultimately, it's code enforcement who the chief of police provides oversight to.
I mean, if we're making edits, I mean, you were making grammar edits all the way through it and switching out the word water for public works.
Code compliance or something.
Yeah, I'm
like
just
that,
like, really? But maybe Chief Van doesn't mind.
Is Chief Van on the call?
He is on the call.
I demand, if I have one demand at all, it's that we not change that piece. I need that little bit of leverage right there.
John's the only one who actually invested money in a system that records sewer systems, so I think that he's more prepared to do this than I am.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
We're privy.
Yeah, I couldn't resist. I got the biggest chuckle out of that. I was like, okay, I know what Josh is going to say, that we didn't edit that section of the code, but I couldn't resist bringing it up.
I don't know. I think we should just leave it.
That's all I have.
Or we could put down the city manager. He's in charge of everybody, so he could delegate that responsibility.
Prior code 852, that's going way back.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Sorry, that's all I had. I had a long list.
Don't stand in the way of John Lewis's enthusiasm to take this on.
I'll have to say this is probably the second time I've cried at a city commission meeting because I'm just laughing so hard.
I wish it was only the second time I cried at a city commission.
So Josh, if the commissioners is there more, or would you like Josh to try to summarize what we've heard so far?
No, I think he can.
I'm done.
Sorry.
Josh and John, do you guys have kind of where we're at? I'm feeling a little bit like with the changes, we should probably bring it back. I don't know if we can read all these in.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I think the question would be for Christina and Bill that do we provide a first reading with the understanding that we will bring those revisions for the second reading because Public Works supports those revisions, or what steps would you guys like to take legally and process-wise?
And my preference is to bring it back. The first and second readings, we never had a challenge to it, but it does say that if strict compliance with the charter isn't observed, the ordinance may have no effect, and rather risk that. In the past, we've always had first and second readings of the final version.
I think it'd just be cleaner. We'll just bring it back.
They'll go faster next time.
Yeah, we'll do the first and second reading in the same time.
For a first reading on the 20th.
Yep. Or we could do a first and second reading.
Motion? Someone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we bring this back with the corrected version for a first reading at our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commission President Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think this is a word for the police department. You need to read these ordinances a little more carefully so that you don't find out that you've got duties unspecified duties that you had no idea about.
Keyword duties. General business, it's 9:35 and we're just getting to general business. So we're now on to 7B, second reading of ordinance number 21-1002, amending a development agreement with John Jones Construction. And I believe this is
Could we just skip the staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Commission President. So I want to introduce Matt Zook. He is the city's new finance director. He started on December 28th, so a little over a week ago. Matt has over 22 years of experience in municipal finance. Previously worked at other jurisdictions throughout the region here, including Lake Oswego, Westland, most recently coming to us from Newburgh. So very excited to have Matt as part of the executive team and as our new finance director. Matt and his wife, and they have their 5 daughters, have lived in Oregon City since 1996 with a 4-year little escape from the city to North Bend, but did come back. So just really excited to have Matt as part of the team, and hopefully as we move forward, have the opportunity to work with him closely, especially as we're rolling into goal setting and the budget season coming up here.
Did you ask him that fundamental question that I asked you to ask him?
If it's related to Potato Club, not yet.
Okay, all right. That's coming, coming, just heads up.
See, how good was that? I knew exactly what she was talking about.
You are amazing, Tony.
Yeah.
Matt, welcome.
Can I go ahead and call for the first, for the motion, so he doesn't have to give a report, because this is pretty basic. Do you want to give a report?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for the welcome. It's been really, honestly, a dream come true. After a long career working for other cities and now coming home to serve Oregon City, I'm very proud to be here. I will say that just sitting through the first half of this meeting, just watching the conversation about my town was just really rewarding to hear you guys talk about the geography and the planning and defend the city and just all the things that you guys are involved with. I'm just glad to be here. So I will say that I did read this entire section of the agenda during the last 10 minutes to make sure that the police chief wasn't referenced in this as well. I can tell you there's no reference to the police chief in this second reading, so.
Not yet.
Excuse me, as Commissioner McGriff said, this is now the second reading, and I was not here for the first reading, but it sounds like this is a standard item in front of you for the second reading. I'm presuming that this is business as usual, and I'm recommending that the commission approve the second reading and the final adoption of Ordinance 21-1002.
Mr. Commission President, I'd like to move the second reading of ordinance number 21-002, amending the development agreement with John Jones Construction, Inc.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
We've got one.
The second reading.
Ordinance number 21-1002, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending ordinance 08-1003, a development agreement with John Jones Construction, Inc. pursuant to ORS 94.504 to 94.528, as amended by ordinance 09-1003 and ordinance 19-1017.
I believe you did say 21-003. It's 21-002.
On the website that I'm looking at, it's ordinance number 21-1002. Does the staff report have? Yeah, the staff report also has 21-1002.
Yeah, I think you just were rattling off the numbers. It sounded like you said 003. So
I didn't say it was if I did say there was amending ordinance 08-1003, but
yeah, okay. All right, we're good.
We're good.
Commissioner Rachel Lau Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commission President Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, now we're on to 7C, resolution number 20-37, update to guidelines for transportation impact analysis, and Community Development Director Laura Turley.
All right, thank you very much. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
All right, I'll be quick. We have proposed some minor amendments to our guidelines for traffic impact analysis. We had talked to the commission about this previously and were directed to make a couple changes. So this should be that revised version. The TIA is a engineering study that analyzes the impact of transportation and development. So it looks at how many trips development is causing and what those trips do to our system as a whole. It does not include approval criteria or development review. It just talks about what should be in that study to analyze what the impact actually is. We analyze transportation at many different levels. When we do these citywide and regional plans, we look at the transportation system plan, for example, assumes full development of all property in the city, and that's what helps us get to the death by 1,000 cuts for these little minor movements that some developments create, but yet those minor movements wouldn't trip an intersection to go over or anything like that. So we do multiple levels of review. The review that the TIAs apply to, how to do the study, is those items that are identified within the red box. So again, it's not these more comprehensive reviews, it's just the specific development review. There is a lot of information in these transportation studies. They look at the existing conditions. They look at build out of the city at future dates, as well as intersections and distribution of trips and how driveways affect development and when additional turn lanes and things like that are warranted. I'm not going to go through the list of proposed revisions because we did that last time, but by and large, the purpose of this is actually housekeeping to update these standards that haven't been updated for a very long time to reflect both our current code and our current TSP, which is not all that new anyway. So we needed to change our references and update our language. So most of this is that. There are a couple of comments. There are 4 comments specifically from the commission and last time. And so the first one was a request that when there's a transportation study done, it is by a licensed transportation engineer. The city then reviews it, and it's actually reviewed by a few people, but we have a transportation engineering consultant that currently does it for us. And the request from the commission was to make sure that we include language that our review includes someone who's a licensed engineer with knowledge in transportation or a transportation engineer. And so we did that as well. The second request from the commission was to reword some language for, so it's clearer and it's plain language. The language that was requested to be reworded was the goals and policies of the transportation system plan that we have. So we reworded them so they make more sense. So they're summaries of the goals and policies in language that's more easy to understand. A little bit less wonky. The other one was a request that we really make sure these offsite impacts are properly analyzed. And so this one got a check mark and an X because we looked through the language again and we looked at ways in which we analyze transportation to see if there's methods that we should include that weren't included in the TIA. Because remember, the TIA is not the criteria that says, is this too much trips or not? It is just what should be in this body of research to see what the impacts actually are. And so we think that we have a fairly comprehensive list of what is in the TIA and couldn't think of anything else to add since we already look at trip distribution and traffic control and turn lane warrants and intersection operational analysis and things like that already. So we didn't make any changes in the whole guidelines since the last time we've seen you regarding that. But if the city commission wants to change how we analyze transportation, that would show up in a code amendment where we have our code provisions of how much congestion is acceptable and those kind of things. so not in this particular venue. Then the last one was a request that accessory dwelling units be subject to review. We had added language listing them in the exempt column. And so we did a little bit of research on that. We have an ORS that limits the ability of Oregon City to require that there's on-site parking for ADUs or accessory dwelling units, which are like mother-in-law units. And so also that provision limits unreasonable regulations. Now, it doesn't go on to define unreasonable regulations, but we think that requiring an ADU to have a transportation study is an unreasonable regulation. And the reason for that is because of, one is the cost. They're paying for a consultant to do a study, and they're paying for the city to review that study as well. And then when we do that, the studies are discretionary. So that means the process for what we're reviewing would also have to go through a public notification. And right now you can have an accessory dwelling unit and, we'll issue you permits over the counter. So having it go through about a 4-month review would probably have a cost associated with that as well. Does seem unreasonable. In addition, the study itself wouldn't really bear any fruit for us because we know that they're incredibly small impact on our transportation system as a whole. It's not like one ADU is going to trip an intersection. We also know that we don't require transportation studies for like an addition on your house. And that's really kind of what an ADU is similar to transportation-wise as well. And if we're interested in the overall impact, we do the transportation TSP, Transportation System Plan, which assumes development so we can get at all these little trips and add them up together. The last reason is because we can't, I heard a concern of the commission regarding on-street parking. And on-street parking is open to the public, so anyone in a house or visiting a house or an accessory dwelling unit is welcome to use the on-street parking. If people aren't parking in the proper spot, then that's really more of a code enforcement issue for parking related reasons. That is my last slide. I'm trying to keep it quick for you guys. I am asking for approval of Resolution 2037.
All right, questions or comments? Commissioner O'Donnell.
So my concern with this total discussion over the guidelines for transportation impact analysis, we've all sat up there and we had a larger discussion, I think just as a part of it, of the criteria for annexation. And we talked about how this currently works, that a developer can come in and diminish an intersection, and until such time as what they call the VC ratio hits to 1.0, nothing happens. In the meantime, we do collect SDCs, but SDCs can be payable under a payment plan over a 10-year period. And the last time we talked about something like an incremental impact fee, where we would study it and say, well, you've diminished this intersection's efficiency. Say it's at 0.5, now you've driven it up to 0.75. We talked about the potential for an incremental impact fee, which I know is opposed by staff, but should that discussion be part of this very thing we're discussing tonight, the TIA?
I don't believe this is the right mechanism because what you're talking about is code standards, and this package is really just to say what needs to be in your transportation study. I would also argue that we sometimes do actually charge for those incremental offsite improvements as well. Like for example, at Beaver Creek in 213, we charged every car that goes through it related to new development, not just when it's broken. But as far as tonight is concerned, this is really just what should be in a traffic study. Are there things that we're looking at, and are we looking at everything appropriate?
Well, shouldn't the incremental impact be part of the traffic study?
So the traffic study would have, are you taking
how many trips come from your development? Are you putting it in the model? Are you looking at the distribution of that to see what intersections are analyzed? And so that's what this does include now, as far as what we do with the results of that, and that needs to be in the code. In other words, if we're going to deny an application because of something we want to add in here, then this is not the right place to add it. It needs to be in the code.
But is it not a starting point? It would be the reference document. I mean, if we were stating that you've diminished the effectiveness of this intersection by 0.25 points, you know, should that not be in this document as a reference document when we go into the code?
I think it will be, because as part of the TIA, you're going to have the existing conditions, and then you're going to have what the new conditions are. Because they're going to, you're going to be required to document what the existing condition of an intersection is, and then you're going to put in, the assumed trips associated with your development, which is going to give you a new trip count, and it's going to give you a new level of service of that intersection. So those numbers are there. I think what Laura's trying to say is what we do with them is really part of the code. So I think that your scenario of someone would come in, they want to do a development, they're going to run the existing condition, it's going to show the intersection at 0.5. They're going to add their development, it's going to show it's now VC is at 0.75. I believe that's already that's going to be a product of this already. Now, what we do with that is different than the process of just analyzing. This is strictly analysis. This isn't exactions. So I think what you're asking for is in there, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, let me
Okay,
ask.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think I know where you're going with this. So let me try asking this in a different way, because I asked Laura part of this, but I didn't have it articulated. So within the scope of work, could we not ask for an analysis of the cumulative effect of the proposed development vis-a-vis other developments existing or proposed in the area?
We
That is already included in this.
Okay, so show me exactly where that is. Because maybe it's the way it's written that it isn't, I'm not getting it.
One moment.
Because, I think what Commissioner O'Donnell's getting at is if we had been collecting incremental systems development charges for, let's just take, for example, Central Point Road, it might be fixed by now. But we have more and more and more developments on Central Point Road and maybe again, Central Point Road, as I pointed out to a constituent, may not even be our road out in some of those developments. It may still be a county road, which would account for its not pristine condition. And we are, I'm totally agreeing with Public Works that we should not be accepting any roads from the county unless they help us bring it up to some sort of standard, because otherwise they're just going to dump all their crappy roads on us and then we end up paying for them. I don't support that.
So, Laura, did you find it?
Central Point Road is a good example. I mean, I moved here in '94 and all those fees were collected, and Central Point Road hasn't changed one bit.
So Commissioner Griff, on page 7, number 5, background conditions, what the proposed land use action, approve in-process developments and funded transportation improvements in the study area, traffic growth assumptions, addition of traffic from other planned developments, background traffic volumes, and operational analysis.
Number, which one on
Page 7, number 5, 6.05.
Oh, okay. Well, that's,
And you can
okay.
also find it on page 8.
6.05?
Nope, 6, it's.
I see item 6, yeah.
Transportation impacts, TIS contents. Number 5 is background conditions.
Okay, our pages may be different, because on page 5, I have.
Page 7.
Page 7 starts with 5.0 transportation analysis letter contents. That's what's on my page 5.
Are you looking at the red line?
She's on the red line version.
Oh, you're on the red
I'm
line
sorry,
version.
I'm on the
Okay, sorry,
plain.
I'm not on the red line version.
It's page 8. There's a whole section called Transportation Impact Study Contents. number
Yep,
6 talks
I see
about
it.
full build out and truth distribution. So I'd say a majority of these studies look at what is the impact and what is that distribution like. So that's where you'll see all those like 100 pages of like intersections and how it travels through. The other thing I would mention, which is probably why John turned on his camera, is cumulative effect and when improvements need to go in place. So there may be development that happens, but it doesn't push an intersection into a place that is broken. And so you wouldn't expect the improvement to happen when it's not needed yet. And then I guess John can talk about it a little bit more, but there's certainly more conversation about this in the packet for next week's meeting too, about transportation in general. But we wouldn't build a wider road if it's not needed. We wouldn't build it in advance of it being needed. So if the money's not there, we wouldn't build it in advance. And then also the amount of congestion that is, there may be a disconnect between how much congestion we allow and how much congestion the community expects. And so that's a slightly different thing if we need to change our code to talk about how much congestion we should allow, and that's a slightly different conversation.
If I'd like to speak again, Laura's point actually is my point, that the no action occurs until the VC number hits 1.0. And no funds are accumulated other than you might say SDCs are, but SDCs are not immediately collected. It may not be. So we get all the way to the point of failure before we take action, and then we don't have funding to do it. And I'm not saying to immediately start improving the road, but I am saying establish earmarked funds that are related to this incremental impact fee and set them aside for when the moment comes when we have to act or we hit that tipping point. We don't start from zero and try to collect when we don't have the wherewithal to do it. That's my point. I don't know where the right mechanism is to link what I've been calling an incremental impact fee to a collectible to, how does that work? I'm not sure how we've done. That may be a code amendment.
I guess what I hear the struggle is, and I think this is something I've talked to some other commissioners about, which is there seems to be this desire to build out the roadway before the development happens, right? So that you've got, the neighborhoods tend to say, the city's program is such that you wait until it's broken before you build something. And, there is some truth to that in that we're collecting SDCs and, or in your case, Commissioner O'Donnell, we're collecting them, but we're collecting them at too slow a rate because everybody's deferred them. I suppose finance could give us some details on how much deferment we see, but I think a lot of that is something that's not happening, right? Because the builders are they can't leave that deferment in place once they sell the home. So we don't see as much deferment as you might think, but still, you're trying to collect, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing first. If we're talking, let's say Beaver Creek Road, for instance, where, we would like to see a bigger facility today to accommodate growth, those are the kind of projects. Central Point's another one, South End Road, for instance. And one of the points that I've been seeing is, other jurisdictions have been successful in putting project lists like that together and pursuing a bond measure. Now that's a little bit tricky because are you paying for that with SDC funds? Are you paying for that with, general taxes? Are we putting that together with some of our PMUF? I think it's complicated, but this issue isn't uncommon to, we're not alone in this situation where we require frontage improvements, but if you're out on the end of Central Point, we may be building a 3-lane section out there with on-street parking and everything, requiring that developer to build that frontage improvements. But that may not happen down near Warner Parrott, right? Where maybe there's an intersection improvement or something needed there. That's where those SDCs are fundable. But but there's also some contribution by the existing residents to help cover some of that, or there should be, right? Because it'd be nice to have that even today. So there is a little bit of this question about collecting SDCs and what the timing of that. There's also, the question about how do you fund the existing citizen portion of that. And those are challenges. I'm not sure how this transportation study necessarily informs that. We already know through our transportation system plan where we need those larger facilities, where we need those bigger intersections, where we need that sidewalk connectivity. So, it's more about, how do we deliver those projects? Our SDCs are designed to collect the money for the element of that that's growth related. The piece that's kind of missing is the piece from the existing customers, which is typically done in a bond measure of some sort. That's what other agencies have been successful with.
And
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm sorry, but before you go on, we're at 10 o'clock. So we need to make a decision about whether or not we want to continue in this topic, or do we want to continue this over to another meeting? We need the majority of the commission to continue beyond 10 o'clock.
I'm good with continuing because I think we're almost done.
I'm good with that. Commissioner O'Donnell, continue.
I'm fine with it, because I think we're almost done with it. I'm not satisfied with, I've sat there so many times where developers come up there and tell me about the criteria and I must approve, and I'm trying to establish the groundwork for a criteria in a reference document that will be referenced by other documents, including city code. So feel free to proceed. I think we'll be able to wrap this up.
Okay, any other?
I don't have anything, so I can make a motion.
No, I just want to make sure that, our traffic consultant hears this conversation and understands that when he is reviewing these things, that this is things that we are concerned about, not just us, but our community is concerned about, and we need to figure out how to get there to answer these questions to our public.
And I'm sorry to say, in the 4 years I sat up here, I've never seen our consultant differ from the report furnished by the applicant.
Well, I don't think it's the consultant's job to solve the city problem. The consultant's job is reviewing the numbers and reviewing the analysis to make sure that what is provided to us.
I think this is a great conversation for the retreat and to build upon this, because for example, Myers Road Extension, SDC eligible, 1.9 million, non-SDC eligible, 1.6 million. So the SDC portion is usually not the problem. It's the 1.6 that's non-SDC that's the problem. And I think that's where John is talking about, if this is a priority of the commissions, then we need to think about how we're going to do that. Right. Because, it's going to take a mixture of existing, potentially PMOF, potentially some, transportation funds that are coming in from other whether it's from the state money, and then you're gonna have to bond that, because these projects are so large anymore that, that by the time it takes us to save up that money, it's really hard to do. So I think this is a really good conversation, but, these are existing conditions. So to put that onto the developer is extremely difficult. When we have not addressed our existing infrastructure needs over the 20 years I've been here on some streets. So I think that's where John was trying to get to in terms of, it has never been a priority of this of a commission to put together a transportation package, a way to fund it, and any debt we take on, we got to go to the vote of the people. Right? So that's just never been done. In other jurisdictions where you don't have that vote requirement, you've got these existing utility fees and revenues coming in that you can bond to go do projects. And that's how you do some of these larger stretches of areas.
Yeah. Mr. Lewis and I have had this conversation since I was on the Planning Commission, and we haven't solved the problem, but we've definitely had some very big picture thinking conversations, which I have certainly appreciated because he's kind of right in line with where my brain is going. And I guess part of what I look to Mr. Conkle is how do we convince our community that this is something that they need to be concerned about? So it's, as you say, it's one of those conversations.
I don't know.
Okay, so my camera, I think, is froze. I could hear everybody, but I can't really see what's going on. But do we have any more comments or questions, or do we have a motion?
Comments or questions?
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 20-337.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Okay, Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
I'm going to say aye, but I'm still wanting more.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
No, because I want more.
And Commission President Rocky Smith.
No.
The motion does not pass.
What more do you want? Do you know?
We've already stated it.
Well, I think we're going to have to move to continue this to the next meeting. We're not going to solve it tonight. And I apologize, it's just the way it is right at this moment. If the motion failed, I can't think of a silver bullet statement to make it work right now at the time we're at.
Yep, let's move on.
Would you like me to come back in a work session? And if so, or a hearing, what information can I provide to you at that next round?
Was this something we were going to talk about at the goals session?
I don't think staff was anticipating waiting that long for this.
Well,
I understand.
Would it help to bring some real life Oregon City examples? Does that help inform this a little bit? Because sometimes it's hard to picture, across all of Oregon City, for instance. But if we brought maybe a less contentious area than Holcomb or something like that, would that be helpful?
I think Holcomb would be an excellent example.
Okay.
I don't know if we have a solution for that.
And I think there's a disconnect between what this resolution is trying to accomplish, how guidelines for transportation impact analyses are being used. Why are we updating them versus the larger conversation questions? Like, where are these things intersecting? I think there's a disconnect between where this is coming into play versus how we want to fix larger conversations. And I think Commissioner O'Donnell is thinking that we can work on fixing it at this level. And it sounds like Ms. Turway is saying, no, this is not an appropriate place for what's being asked. So I feel like there's a disconnect in maybe how this guideline document is intended to be used. And does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Maybe it falls to staff to overcome that disconnect.
Yeah, I think I'm totally agreeing with you, Commissioner Lyle Smith. I think part of where the disconnect is with our community partners is the information you're talking about in 6.0. And if that truly gets to the question that I asked, then obviously there's a disconnect between our constituency when they come to hearings and they make testimony with regard to some of these items, and these things are, to quote someone, somewhat dismissed. And the perception is that these reports come in, they get rubber stamped by the Planning Commission, and then that's it. So we have to somehow help our citizens understand how they can use this 6.0, not to deny an application, but how to make the process for them to fully participate better so that they understand that when they talk to me, because that's the word I get used all the time, say, well, what is the cumulative effect? So if I look at this development, this development, this development, this development, this is what happened to this road. Nobody paid attention to us when we said, this is what's going to happen. and then it happens. So the guidelines are giving the engineers the technical part of what they need to do, but it is not addressing what I would call the human nature part that they relate to. So that's where part of, I think, some of the disconnect is coming in with our constituency. And, I as many years as I've been doing this, I still don't understand all of these reports. And I think that's where we're trying to assist our community in being able to use the same documentation that an engineer, so they don't have to be an engineer to try to understand how they can influence the process and maybe get some more improvements that they would like to see. I don't know. I'm just trying to summarize some of the frustration that I hear with regard to our guidelines.
I'm not sure how to answer that because the guidelines are not the approval criteria.
I know they aren't, but
I think it's the approval criteria is what seems to be the issue, which is what Commissioner O'Donnell was getting at about these triggers and,
But they also ask us, well, what goes into this? Are they looking at these sorts of things? And so I'm trying to communicate that, and I talked to Mr. Way about it this afternoon, we're trying to communicate that the things in item 6.0 are the things that are going into the report that need to be paid attention to in order for constructive public comment to be taken and hopefully affect change, or they say, no, this doesn't affect the change.
I'll make a final comment and then I'll hope we move on. I've sat there during these presentations by attorneys for applicants, and I've sat there when multiple citizens came up and talked about the impact on traffic. And maybe we're moving away from the matter at hand, but the attorney would say, unless you're a traffic engineer, your opinion is meaningless. That's exactly what he said. So that troubles me, and maybe that's not related to tonight's, but I want to be very clear on this and a way of moving forward to that we are better educated, and that maybe requires some interaction with staff. Again, I'll stand by tonight's vote and ask that we move on.
All right, anything else? So that will come back.
Would you like a motion on the consent agenda?
We're on the consent agenda.
Hey. I would move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commission President Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And that brings us to.
Thank you for the thorough minutes.
Communications. What, sorry?
I said, thank you, Katie, for the thorough minutes.
City Manager report.
Thank you, Commissioner President, evening commissioners. Really the only update, sorry for the miscommunication tonight. I had received some requests about meeting in person, even though we had moved to virtual with what's been going on in terms of the increased counts. Just because of the ceremonial nature of tonight, I would propose and am recommending that we move back to virtual until we get a little bit further through this, get past January, take a look at where we're at, get past the holiday. I think it would be beneficial for everybody if we did that. So that is my intent moving forward for the work session next week, as well as the meeting in January, and then kind of just reassess and just kind of see where we're at.
Thank you for letting us take National French Fry Day off.
All right.
That's all that I have. Thank you.
That's it. Okay, commissioners. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Commissioner Lyle Smith?
I'll just mention that I met on Monday with a group of business owners from downtown Oregon City. And I think it's important that we know and our community knows that we still have businesses that are really struggling and may not make it through this. this second round of closing down and restrictions and all that's been placed upon them. They did provide some feedback of some struggles with the parklet provisions that we put in place to try to help the businesses for the COVID. I didn't get enough details to bring back to you or to bring back to the city. I'm hoping, I asked for more information, if they could be more specific about what was causing them troubles with that, because our goal with that was really to try to support our businesses who are struggling to try to provide outdoor services while indoor services was being restricted. So anyway, I told them I would mention it. I think it's important. We need to continue to support our downtown businesses and all of our businesses actually in the city. It just so happened to be that I was meeting with some downtown businesses, but I just wanted you all to know that there still are some that are really, really struggling and probably really close to at the brink of closing. So it's very serious. And I know we've done a lot to try to help them, and I hope they get back to us on maybe some tweaks that we can make if there's something that we can do to make it a little bit easier for them to stay open, even if it was a temporary emergency measure until maybe our risk exposure level for COVID gets reduced at the county level. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I told them I would mention it, and I'm thinking about them regularly, and as we all should be. And that's it.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tonight, and I want to congratulate Commissioner O'Donnell and Commissioner McGriff for being sworn in again. I remember back not too long ago, this was a ceremonial night, and it usually involved just swearing in the commission and then leaving to go out to dinner or have drinks or do something. And this was a heavy night, and it was a heavy night on top of a horrific day. So I just want people to know that, you know, the work that we do, and we as a commission don't always agree either, but we're volunteers, and we work very hard. And the commitment that people make in public service is an absolutely enormous one. And we do the best that we can. And after watching the news today, and it looks like it's gotten, you know, more people lost their lives than what we knew when this meeting started tonight. And so take care of each other, and hopefully, you know, we can look towards this year as kind of an optimistic one. And I think tonight is a good start to that. And I will encourage everyone out there to do your research and talk to all of the people that are running for mayor. We have 5 candidates running for mayor, which is a huge number, or at least an unusual number for Oregon City to have that many candidates running for mayor. And so do your homework, get out there, meet these people at a distance, meet them virtually, and get to know what they're about, and make a good decision. And hopefully, when we have a new mayor on board or someone on the commission currently as mayor, then we can move forward as a city and really keep working. So thank you all, and hopefully you have a good night. Denise, did you want to say something?
You skipped me under commission reports, so let me just.
No, I didn't know. I said Commissioner McGriff. I went to you, but.
Okay, well, I didn't hear my name, so let me just briefly concur with what Commissioner Lyle Smith said, not to steal your thunder, but I also, over the holidays, had several discussions with business owners downtown, and as you know, I'm representing us on the DOCA board, and I also have a concern. Maybe they're the same reasons that Commissioner Lyle Smith does, but I'll talk to her about that further. What I told these business owners that contacted me was that the specific questions were, would I support the mayor of Sandy's proposition to open businesses, and I basically declined. I said that I think it was inappropriate, that I had basically told them that Oregon City has done everything that it can at this point in time to help businesses, but if we don't know what kind of help you need and you don't tell us, we're not mind readers. I said, with regard to the issue that you brought up about parklets, as I stated before, I said, we will do everything we can to support you as long as there is not a life safety issue going on. We will do what we can. So I also did not get any specifics about the parklets, and I asked very specifically, I said, what is it that is causing you a problem? Because if you don't tell me specifically, I can't help you solve the problem with my fellow commissioners. So we have a board meeting next week with DOCA, and I will be reaching out to the chamber director as well to see if we can get more definitive answers to those questions. So thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, that's it. We're adjourned. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all.